And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Kuehl Show. I am your host, as always, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. And if you guys remember what I said at the top of the show last week, how this is now the third show in the new studio / office / house that I live in, we weren't going to make it, one guest for the first week, 2 for the second, 3 for the third. Well, I have some bad news for all the folks that thought I was going to be right. We have three awesome guests on the show tonight. We will get to all of them. Bruce LeVine coming up here in about half hour's time, covering the Dallas Stars radio host, and of course, your awesome, lovely favorite man from the South, former Alabama Huntsville play-by-play broadcaster Peyton Turnage, coming on at 7 o'clock. We'll be getting to our first guest here, talk some Sabres here in just a moment. But we must thank you all for watching this episode of The Kuehl Show here on 12 Ounce Sports, whether you're watching us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Zingo TV, channel 761 if you want to join there. 12 ounce 120Z is the promo code, or Z for you improper English users. Jump on there. And of course, with the sponsors that put this amazing show on for us all, as always, including mybookie.ag, guys. Listen, baseball's coming down to the wire. We got MLS coverage. I don't know if you can bet on the Women's Worlds, but boy, it's shaping up to be a dandy in the final. All sorts of stuff you can bet on. Use the promo code 12ouncesports and get signed up for free. Win and get paid on mybookie.ag. And as always, up in the corner, Second String Leather Company, hashtag crafted from the crease, guys, Collection 9. If you see the swag, it is spectacular. I'm wearing their shirts right now. This is not Collection 9, by the way, but this is their second round of awesome swag on the laptop as well, which you kind of can't see on the screen right now, as I just realized, but hey, it is awesome stuff they have there. Check them out, secondstringleather.com, hashtag crafted from the crease. So with that, let's get right into it. I don't mean to speed through the intros. I'm sorry, everybody. I know we just have so much to get to today. So many awesome guests to talk about today. So much stuff to complain about today on The Kuehl Show. And with that, let's welcome in our first guest of the day. He is a Buffalo Sabres fan / reporter, right in the middle of Toronto Maple Leafs and Ottawa Senators country. Appearing for a third time here on TKS. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, Jordan DeShane. Jordan, how are we doing today, man?
Not too bad, Tyler. Thanks for having me back.
Jordan, I tell you, first of all, how are you doing? Well, before we get to the nonsense that is the team that you love to cover and love to cheer for, how are you doing?
Well, that's a big part of it. I mean, all things considered, as a Sabres fan, I'm doing pretty good still. But yeah, nothing to complain about.
Nothing to complain about until we get to the main part. For real though, folks, he actually lives right, for those that haven't seen or heard Jordan on before, he literally lives in between Toronto and Ottawa. Belleville is where he likes to go to games all the time. So he is a Sabres fan. It's just a little bit further than if he was living in, Southeast Toronto or St. Catharines or whatever. Yeah, actually, that's a great... Do you just love where you live, Jordan? Because I know, if you're a Sabres fan, you could move closer to the border down the 403, right?
Yeah. Where we are, it's a good spot. We're just kind of central, close to everything. It's not too big. It's nice and quiet. So,
you know what? In these days, in these times, I'm sure that's amazing. Let me know how that is living here in Grand Rapids. We don't get that too much. But I tell you, the Buffalo Sabres, Jordan, when I reached out to Jordan, I was going to mention, we're going to get to Rick Jeanneret in just a minute. That was really the story that I really want to talk about Jordan, because obviously he's a big Sabres fan. And for those that don't know, Rick Jeanneret has announced that this will be his last season with the Buffalo Sabres. And like I said, we'll get to that in a minute. However, there's been a development over the last weekend with some guy by the name of Jackson H. Eichel. I don't know if H is actually his middle initial, but we're going with it anyways. Jack Eichel signing on with a new agent, Jordan. Pat Brisson, who represents a lot of big names. Jonathan Tavares, Patrick Kane. So pretty much, Pat Brisson now has, I think, 5 or 6 guys, according to Puckpedia, that are signed for 10+ mil AAV. So that guy is getting a good chunk of change in his deals with his players. But do you see anything in this? Because I know to the naked eye, signing with a new agent, whatever. What could that really mean? Do you think Jack Eichel leaving his agent, who was okay with Jack Eichel getting this rather experimental operation done on him, going on to a rather more popular agent?
Yeah, I think that can absolutely move things along a little bit. First off, when it comes to Jack's middle name, his middle name is actually Jack.
Jack's, oh my gosh, his name is JJ. We got J. Jonah
Jack.
Eichel up there in Buffalo.
But yeah, with Pat Brisson, I mean, one of the top agents, like you mentioned, in the league, all kinds of high-end clients. He knows how to get things done. He knows how to get deals done. And what was happening with Jack's two other agents, the other Peters, Donatelli and Fish, it was not working. It was becoming more of a battle back and forth between them and Kevin Adams about who was more right and who was more wrong, who's more at fault. And obviously it wasn't getting anywhere. It seemed like maybe heading towards the draft, there could be a trade. At the draft, there could have been a trade. You would think that, you know, as free agency started, there would have been a trade, but nothing happened. And then it just kind of turned into a personal war. So seeing him switch agents, it makes sense. We think Pat Brisson, he's got all kinds of very close relationships with a number of GMs in the league. And I would be very surprised if Jack was still part of the Sabres come the start of training camp, if he even makes it to Labor Day.
That's been a huge discussion, obviously, because it's all been about the trade. And by the way, the doctor that would be putting this very experimental disc replacement operation, which has been done for athletes in other sports, but never for a hockey player who's still active, that is Dr. Chad Prusmack. Prusmack? I think it's Prusmack. He was on 31 Thoughts podcast before they took their summer vacation, and it was a very enlightening interview because, you know, I look at it from the player's perspective. If you can be healthy, do it. And from someone who is a big wrestling fan and knows the story of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Edge, two guys who had humongous neck problems, and it's like, all right, if they got it and were able to, you know, live long and healthy lives, go for it. Eichel's trying to do this while he's playing. Now, yes, I know Edge came back. Don't need to tell me. I know all this stuff. But anyways, I wonder, why do you think Buffalo is really holding? I mean, they realize now this dispute between the player and management, they have really severed ties to the point where he doesn't want to play there anymore. Why do you think they don't backtrack and say, you know what, Jack, we want to keep you here. We want you to stay in Buffalo. We want you to be our captain. Go ahead and go for it. Get the operation done, and we'll go from there. Because I see it from both sides. I understand it's a very experiment. Like, there's a minimal, but a chance that Jack Eichel could get hit once after this and be done forever. And I understand that. That's the risk. But he could also come back without the surgery operation and also be done as well. So there's all that. But if you're Kevin Adams, why don't you say, I'm like, all right, Jack, try it. Let's get you back on the ice and be a Buffalo Sabre.
I think that they have made the decision to just move on. And at this point, if they were to go ahead with the surgery and, like you mentioned, maybe it gets botched, it doesn't work out, then it's all on them. And they don't have, they have nothing to show for it. I think that it's maybe been blown up a little bit more than it would be under normal circumstances, because I think that both sides are trying to use it as something to, you know, expedite a divorce, so to speak. It sounds crazy that the Sabres would want to move on like this, but at the same time, what they've been doing isn't working. And Jack has been a phenomenal player, a lot of fun to watch. I know we've talked about it before, but they haven't done anything with him. Literally every team that's ever played a playoff game has done it without Jack Eichel. So while he's the best player on the team and definitely their offensive leader, if they've decided that they want to go in a new direction, cheaper direction for the Pagulas as well for a time being, I can see both sides kind of trying to milk this for all it's worth, just to try and kind of, you know, push each other until one of them blinks to make the move. You're never going to win a trade when you're trading Jack Eichel normally, but yeah, it just seems like at this point both sides have just decided that this is enough without actually coming out and saying it. I mean, Kevin Adams in a press conference a little while ago said, "Oh, I'd be more than happy if Jack was here for training camp. Give me a break. Come on." you don't want that circus around you. So at this point, it just seems like both sides are just kind of standing in their lanes just to try and push this along until someone blinks.
It's so tough to try to figure out what goes on in Kevin Adams' mind. And as soon as he was hired, I was like, because you and I have had our things with the Pagulas for a while now. We've given our piece, and for better or worse, they are still the owners of the hockey club. And Kevin Adams, until something drastically stupid happens, he's probably going to be the general manager. But that said, you know that he's, like you mentioned, no one's going to win this trade with Jack Eichel, even if he's healthy. And I know this is a far-fetched, and I'm not comparing Jack Eichel to Wayne Gretzky when I say this, but look at the trade that sent Wayne to Los Angeles. We are past, we're a little over a month past the now 33rd anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, of the trade. But Martin Jelena, Jimmy Carson, a couple draft picks, and a bunch of cash. That still was not enough to meet the caliber of Wayne Gretzky. Now looking at the salary cap era, have to mention that, and a flat cap era, Jordan, it seems like no matter what happens, no matter the return, no matter how many picks, no matter how many players, the general managers around the NHL that do want Jack Eichel, that could fit him in, are going to, I don't want to use the word fleece, but that's seemingly the way to describe it. They're going to make sure Kevin Adams gets as little as possible in this return because, A, Jack Eichel, we don't know. It's an unknown of how this is all going to work out. 2, he may be healthy, but he may not be the same Jack Eichel. He's going to probably, at this point, after this operation gets done, may miss a season and a half at least, if, the way I've read how this thing is going to work out. So it is a huge gamble for any team around the league. Do you think Kevin Adams is willing to accept that? Because obviously he's trying to avoid what happened with Taylor Hall. Now, granted, that was going to happen when you pay Taylor Hall $8 million. He's not worth that, but that's neither here nor there. That's what I'm trying to figure out is, does Kevin Adams realize he's going to have to take an L on this deal if he wants to get Jack Eichel out of Buffalo?
I think he does to a degree. Obviously, the challenging thing is he can't say, come out with, here's my absolute bottom offer that I'll take, because it's only going to go lower from there. So he's got to start high. He realizes that he has the time to do it. And so that's, there's all kinds of different reports, 5 first-round picks or 4 assets or whatever. And they're hoping to not take back any salary. Well, get real.
$10 million.
Yeah.
Come on.
There's not many teams that are going to be able to add that. At the same time, he knows that, once the season starts and the cap is much more in play, then it's that much more difficult to make a trade. And so then it gets to the point, the next time you can really make that trade is at the draft next year. And then that's when, you really got a gun to your head and it becomes very difficult.
At that point, you're trading him for a conditional 7th. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's the thing, because they still, I don't think, even if they didn't have a trade made by the start of the season, I don't think that they would be pushing for him to get whatever surgery he wants. So, but what I'm curious about is what would happen if Jack just said, you know what, forget it, I just want to go get my surgery, and just went and did it. I've been wondering about that, trying to look into the logistics. Could they void the contract or what? That would probably be in his best interest. But
Well, I don't know if that wouldn't be in his best interest, because that means literally if he's voided his contract because he went up against whatever it says about getting his own independent surgery, all of a sudden, let's be honest, I don't know many teams that are willing to pay $10 million for a recovering Jack Eichel. As good as he is talented, and how good he could be if he's 100% healthy, this is a gamble, and while other teams are willing to take a chance on it, that comes at a certain peak price of how much they want to take a chance on it. I don't think if you were to put Eichel on the free agent market, this is going to get a lot of people mad at me in Buffalo, but here it goes. I wouldn't pay him more than $7 million just because I don't know what to expect out of Jack Eichel. Unless if you gave him 10 mil for 1 year, I guess, if you can do that, fine. But I wouldn't go term on him for 10 mil if I don't know how he's going to come back and recover properly from this operation.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. That makes sense. And the thing is,
makes dollars and cents. There we go.
There you go. The thing is, for him, the guy has won at every level he's been at. BU, he was great. The World Juniors, even before he got to university, just a winner. And all he's done in Buffalo is lose, and not just lose. We're talking bottom of the league lose. So
even though they were in a playoff spot a couple years back, but that's neither here nor there.
We're going to be on 11 in a row this coming season. So if I was him, I mean, these are all hypotheticals. I would think he would be willing to shave a couple million off to join a competent organization, have a shot at a playoff run, to have a shot at winning something and doing something. But again, these are all hypotheticals. But
right, and that is the one question that nobody has asked, is if Jack Eichel just went out of his way and got it. Now there may be a report on it, so if anyone does have it, please let me know. I would love to hear it, because I just would like to know what happens if he just decided to up and get it. Go in the middle of the night, go to the hospital, whatever, get it done, wake up the next morning, and boom, you have a new neck. What would happen? Would he be no longer Buffalo Sabre? I'm sure in Jack Eichel's interest, he's like, fine. And I think that's what I think he realizes too here, Jordan, is that he knows that his value by going on this off the board with this operation, whether it be under the Buffalo Sabres guidance or whomever he gets dealt to, he knows that his value in the eyes of other people is going to get diminished. That's why I think that at this point he understands it. So that's why I don't think he's pushing to go get it by himself, because he realizes, hey, if I can get moved and make my money, perfect.
Yeah, it seems like one of those in case of emergency break glass type moves. I don't think we're quite there yet, but it just seems like the nature of this relationship and the direction that it's heading, that if this is prolonged any longer than it absolutely has to be, that glass could be broken.
I still, it's confusing, and I understand both sides. I do my best to look at both sides of every argument that I ever see, and I work in news talk radio, and that is a very two-sided conversation all the time. But and I get it. So I see Kevin Adams, like, he doesn't want to take a chance. So it has to happen, but it has to happen soon, because this is something. For those that there's probably some young listeners and viewers that are like, when I say the Eric Lindros holdout, they're like, are you talking about like the basic will be like, oh, the draft? No, kids. The entire 2000-2001 season, after Scott Stevens tried to decapitate Lindros in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and Lindros did not feel comfortable, felt he was victimized by Bobby Clarke, which anyone who watches any Bobby Clarke press conference from that season could possibly agree, because he was pretty much calling Eric Lindros a sissy. And then he got sent to New York the next year. Ended up going to win a gold medal with Canada. So I'm pretty sure he's not too mad about how that all worked out. But you don't want that to be the case, because Lindros, in the year 2000, even though he had concussion problems up to that point, he was still a dominant player. He sits out a year. He comes back. He was never the same. And I think, Jordan, you can probably remember his time with New York and his lovely time with the Leafs. He was not the same Eric Lindros he was back in the Legion of Doom days.
Yeah, completely different. And that's the worry, too, especially with the nature of the injury that Jack has in his neck. That was brought out in that 31 Thoughts podcast. It's not just if he gets hit in the neck. The neck affects everything. His shot, the release, how he's able to move around and maneuver, like all of those things are affected. So the longer it sits, the worse it's going to be. I can only imagine his frustration. He just wants to get it fixed. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that, again, if it makes it to Labor Day, I can't see it making it another 2 weeks into training camp. Yeah,
because here's the thing. At which point, I think Kevin Adams is starting to realize that this is not going to be a team that's moving forward. I mean, if it can move any further backwards, I don't know if the Sabres can. No offense there, Jordan. But
hey, no one has finished 32nd overall yet.
Oh, boy.
We were the first and the last to finish 31st, so it could be the first to finish 32nd.
You are going to see a sprint next season, kids, between the Buffalo Sabres and the Arizona Coyotes. Get ready. Oh, boy. It's going to talk with Louis Pannone last week, and that poor guy, he's going to have some patience this year. But looking at this Sabres team, this is my last question before we move on to our final topic here. It's kind of similar to how I asked Louis this question. What are you looking forward to this coming season? Is there something to look forward to in Buffalo? Because obviously the team is going to be a little bit rough, so you're going to see a lot of young faces, a lot of new faces. But at the same token, there's still Skinner. There's still Dylan Cousins, who I am terrified, because I don't want to waste that talent. I personally think, just watching from juniors and now watching he has had flashes there in Buffalo. I don't want to see that go to waste. I think if you give Ukko-Pekka Laukkanen a real good look, he can actually be an NHL goaltender once again. That's me from watching him in junior hockey and leading Finland to a gold medal in the World Juniors. But there are some things, but what are you looking forward at this Buffalo team?
It's going to be a little bit different than last season because, we talked about Ralph Kruger, the way that he coached. He coached this team to play very safe, play very defensive, to not make mistakes. And he was trying to, rather than develop players, he was trying to win games as much as possible. And so because of that, a lot of the younger players were sat. A lot of the veterans like Riley Sheehan, he got a lot of ice time.
Tinky Winky!
That offers nothing in terms of entertainment values. Great depth player, but not very entertaining. Don Granato, he has a lot of experience with younger players. Whether or not he's the right coach, I don't know. You can see a turnaround last season. They were much more entertaining, taking more chances. Rasmus Dahlin looked like old Rasmus Dahlin, as old as he can be when he's only 20, 21.
Yeah.
But being able to see just a different system and how the young players are used. They didn't go crazy, obviously, in unrestricted free agency. So a lot of these young players are going to get plenty of opportunities. You mentioned UPL as well in net. Seems like with only bringing in Craig Anderson, Aaron Dell, maybe.
So Craig's there for a safety net. Craig was a safety net in Washington, and nobody expected him to play until Vitek Vanacek blew his groin out in game 1. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah.
Yeah, and he's kind of a story I'm really interested in because you think about it. The guy has been around forever. He could have retired, and he came out of retirement, and it wasn't to win a cup. It was to join whatever this is. And so
I want to help.
Yeah.
Just get a shovel, kid.
I mean, this guy, is he going to get a Masterson trophy or something just for coming back to do this?
Sticking with the Sabres.
Yeah, so
Lifetime Achievement Award.
Exactly. There'll be some interesting things to follow. As rough a situation as they're in, I think that the setup of the organization now and having a more unified direction and where they want to go, it can mean some positive things. It's still going to be a rough 2 years at least.
And I think this is why I say, I know people are harping on Kevin Adams, stuff like that. I feel like you have to keep him around because the issue with Ralph Kruger getting fired, looking at my clock here. I'll just quick end on this one. With Ralph Kruger getting fired, it was like, we got to keep some consistency. Maybe Don Granato may be the right guy. But I'll have to get your take on that when they start playing, see if it actually works out. But the last thing we want to talk about here, Rick Jeanneret retiring after this coming season. And Jordan, I tweeted this out, and a lot of people liked it. I said this. Outside of, your national broadcasters, your Bob Coles, your Jim Hewsons, Doc Emmerichs, Gary Thorne's here in the States, in terms of local broadcasters, hometown team broadcasters, I put Rick Jeanneret up there with Joe Bowen, Dan Kelly, the late Dan Kelly, the former St. Louis Blues, even though he did suffer Hockey Night in Canada, but he's mainly for the Blues, and Dave Schrader when he was with Detroit before he went national as well. I put that being the Mount Rushmore of local hometown broadcasters, radio, TV, vice versa. He's a legend, Rick is, and he's already a Foster Hewitt Memorial winner for the Hockey Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall, which is deservedly so. What are your favorite memories of Rick calling games for the Buffalo Sabres since 1984, by the way?
Yeah. So there's so many so many famous calls, not just famous among Sabres fans, but famous in the league. We think of Mayday, La Fontaine, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I know that personally, in my formative teenage years, it was when they had the back-to-back runs in the mid-2000s to the Eastern Conference Finals. And being able to watch those games and hear his calls on the games, these guys are good, scary good, and it just adds so much to it. You just hear him yelling for an overtime goal. I've never done broadcasting. I know you obviously do. Being able to paint a picture for those who are on TV and also those who are listening on radio at the same time.
Because it's simulcast. People got to remember that. He did both. Exactly. It was on MSG, usually MSG Plus, whatever. But also, it was also simulcast on the radio. So he had to do both, which is not easy.
Exactly. And he's been doing radio for the Sabres since, I believe it was their second season, 1971.
Right, yeah.
So it's just incredible, the skill that he has, the ability to paint the picture. I know for myself, I've got so many memories of just driving around, listening to WGR because I can get the Buffalo radio station here. And, you just hear him yelling and you think, oh, what happened? Oh, okay, yeah, they cleared the puck around or something, right?
Well, nowadays, and they cleared the puck and the Sabres have killed off the penalty.
They have cleared the zone, yeah. But it's funny. When I was thinking of some of the more memorable ones, I was thinking of one coming home. I was driving home from Toronto, listening to the game, and then all of a sudden the air went dead. It was so quiet, and I couldn't figure out what happened. And that was a game a few years ago where he had a medical emergency. And all of a sudden came back in. Brian Duff finished calling the game. I remember I was driving and thinking, what is going on? And
was that after Dunleavy was hired by the Sabres?
I believe so. I don't think he was on for that game. They had to Brian Duff from the desk had to call the rest of the game. And I remember just getting home and checking it out and just felt sick to my stomach. Like what's going on with RJ? And thankfully it was I think he had overheated or something like that. He was fine and he called the next game. But the fact, you know what, between him and Craig Anderson, the fact that he's going to come back again for one more season, I think his rationale was he didn't want it to end when there were no fans in the building. And the
exactly.
There's probably not going to be too many fans in the building this year either when he's calling the games. But
listen, if I get save up the money, I will go to that. It'd be kind of dumb to go to the last game in Buffalo and be like, wait, I can't hear you. I always wondered that last game for the broadcast. Like, do you go to the game and wave at them, or do you sit and watch? I mean, I would personally, I love listening to Rick, even when the Sabres were at their lowest, and you could just tell he was miserable to call the games. He still made it interesting, and he just has that voice. That's what I love about Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got 20 games this year, and they'll definitely be special.
They will certainly be special indeed. We have been chatting here with Jordan DeShane, Buffalo Sabres fan. He writes about him as well. And let's hope that the 20 games that Rick calls are the games the Sabres win. Now, if that's going to mean that's all they're going to win this season, I would not be shocked at all. You guys can follow Jordan at Jordan DeShane91 on Twitter. Jordan, thanks again, man, for stopping by, and we will definitely catch you down the road when the puck drops and hopefully when the Sabres are a good, decent competitive hockey team.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tyler.
All right, we'll be back with more of the Kula Show right after this. And welcome back to the Kula Show, everyone. Just wait just a minute here before we get Bruce LeVine to jump on today's show. We have a lot going on today. So we got Bruce LeVine coming on here in just a few minutes, and Peyton Turnage coming back here in just a little bit as well. Got a lot to get to today. While we have a moment here, let's talk about the Women's World Championships. We'll get you updated. We'll talk about the Canada game a little bit later on, the one that's about to happen. About 24 minutes in time. Speaking of which, just cut me off right in midstream. Ladies and gentlemen, Bruce LeVine, radio host of the Dallas Stars. Bruce, how are we doing, man?
I apologize for being late. I had to reset my Google password.
Oh, gotcha.
I did not know what it was. I tried to log in and it almost kicked me out. And then I had to go, okay, let me just do this over, get this right. I don't want to miss the show. So at the very least, I have improved my security, which is really all that matters.
That is very important these days. I get all of those lovely emails all the time. Is your device being protected enough? And I'm like, I think so. I've only given my social security number to about 5,000 websites, but that's okay.
Right.
Bruce,
and they already know your bank account number.
Exactly. Oh, I make sure I give that to everybody. Maybe so they send me money, right? That's exactly what I do.
There you go.
So for those that don't know how Bruce and I know, I don't think I've mentioned this in like, oh gosh, a few months. Bruce and I, Bruce had to be contractually obligated to deal with me for 10 days in Texas while we did the U18s together. Bruce, how have you been since then?
Been good. I was not contractually obligated. I actually enjoyed working with you. Unlike most people I meet in the world, I enjoyed working with you. I would like to have played a round of golf with you.
Had I not had to work at my job here in Grand Rapids down there, I would have had a free time in the world. And it's funny, Bruce, I didn't tell you this. I came back from Texas, came back up, worked the next Wednesday, I think it was my first day back. And everyone's like, how was your vacation? I'm like, I was working. It wasn't a vacation. I guess vacation means you play golf 3 times in 1 week. I guess that's a vacation, Bruce.
That's actually a vacation. If you can squeeze in 3 rounds of golf, you're not exactly pounding the pavement.
Well, I will say this. 2 of them were executive courses, those lovely short little 9-holers you guys got down there. So I guess it's not a full – it's only like 2 rounds of golf then, right?
Well, when you can play pretty much from November – backward through February. I mean, you basically December and January are sort of iffy, but you can pretty much play 9-10 months out of the year here. So we need the extra courses.
I guess so. Yeah, you have everyone around, and I will say this: that you guys down there, up here in Grand Rapids, I live right down the road from a couple of pretty nice courses, but they don't care if you drive off the cart path or whatever. In Texas, if you go off the cart path, there will be Texas State Police officers coming after you.
Yeah, if you drive off the cart path down here, they will come after you. If you carry a gun, you're perfectly okay. Just remember that. If you wear a gun, you're fine. But if you go off the golf course, you're in trouble.
Oh, well, didn't we joke about that the first date? You can't walk into the Star Center without a mask on, but you could probably walk into the Star Center with a gun and no one's going to bat an eyelash.
It is Texas. I mean, I'm sure you've read the headline, so I don't want to bash this place too badly.
I will say this. We finally hit Texas weather last week. It was about 95 degrees on Wednesday. So, or at least, pardon me, Texas weather in like March. I will say that, right? Oh, Bruce froze. We have lost the Bruce. Oh, boy. Look at that lovely. I will say this. Bruce, as he is, we'll just quickly wait for him to log back in for us there. But I may have to message him that he froze up. Oh, there he is. Bruce, there you are.
This is just a folly full of errors here. My internet hiccup there. I apologize.
It is okay. Usually it's my fault. I'm knock on wood. We've gone 3 weeks in the new house now, the wife and I, without any issues. Knock on wood. But let's get talking to the hockey that's going on. At least going to be happening soon here with the Dallas Stars. For some reason, Bruce, an unintentional trend here on the Kuehl Show. We have hit every Central Division team. I know a lot of people that cover the Central, yourself included. We've talked about Minnesota, Chicago, both the good and bad with the Blackhawks, Arizona, everything here. Dallas, though, we were down in Texas in March, later on in the season, right towards the end of the regular season, when Dallas was still battling with Nashville for that last playoff spot in the Central Division. Obviously, now you go back to the real Central Division, if you will. Dallas seemed like the kind of team that could have made the playoffs last year had they not had these hiccups and this thing called COVID just consistently just hanging around the team, it seemed like.
It was the worst case scenario in so many different ways for the Dallas Stars last year. You got to remember, they're coming off a trip to the Stanley Cup final. Great in the bubble. Took Tampa to 6 games. You come off that and you start training camp. What happens in training? Actually, let's go before training camp. We did not know this last year. We knew that Ben Bishop was going to be out for a while.
Yep.
We knew that Tyler Seguin was going to be out for a while. We didn't know that Anton Khudobin was going to get a hellacious case of COVID in Russia in the offseason. We didn't know this. He does a Zoom call during training camp and just matter of factly brings up, oh, yeah, I had COVID really bad. I couldn't walk up the stairs for 2 weeks because it was too hard for me to breathe.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's good public knowledge, right?
Yeah, it's so nobody knew that, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, the guy you're expecting to carry the load, a couple of months ago couldn't walk from the first floor to the second floor of his house, and he's a professional athlete that's supposed to be performing at the highest level. So we didn't know that. So even before training camp starts, you have that. Then training camp hits, and the Dallas Stars get hit with 17 different cases of COVID. 17 players caught the virus. To this day, we do not know who got it worse than others. We don't know if it was a performance degradation. Could they not breathe? Did they lose weight? Did they struggle to get out of it? We don't know. So you have all that. Then, to top it off, you have the freakish winter storm to hit Texas in the century.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lie. We came within 5 minutes of the state's entire power grid collapsing. It was so bad, the cold weather here.
And we have to remember, the Los Angeles Kings of all teams were in Texas when this happened. So they're probably like, what is this weather?
Yeah, Nashville was first, then the Kings, they started canceling games. You got to remember, what we consider freakishly cold weather in February, you call Tuesday. But for here, it was an actual calamity. Games canceled. So by the time they got done with all that, the league put together a schedule that was the worst schedule in the history of the NHL. The Dallas Stars played 4 games in 6 nights for 11 straight weeks. And by the time they got to the end of it, they couldn't practice. They just didn't have the ability, didn't have the time. So you went weeks without practice. You played 4 games in 6 nights. Arguably your best offensive threat, Roope Hintz, got injured and was playing on half a leg the entire season. Alexander Radulov gets hurt. He's done. He plays 11 games. So all that considered, the Dallas Stars lost a team record 14 games in shootouts or overtime. So if you're basically looking at, if you get 4 more goals, if you win 4 of those games in regulation, you make the playoffs. So despite everything going wrong, the Dallas Stars could have made the postseason last year. So there's a big belief around here that, okay, Murphy's Law just went to the 15th power last year. Now let's get things going this year.
It was so crazy to see it because obviously Ben Bishop wasn't playing and Hudobin was there, but you had Jake Ottinger, who we'll get to in a minute, and he was playing some minutes. And it just seemed like that last spot in the Central was going to go to like Chicago or Columbus, but then they tailed off, and all of a sudden Dallas rose up and Nashville came through. And I still remember you were obviously working the game for Dallas Stars Radio down there in Texas, but we unfortunately in the hockey TV booth down in Texas had to have 4 Nashville scouts like on the edge of our booth screaming when they the 1-0 game in there at Bridgestone. That pretty much was the nail in the coffin for Dallas that year. And I just remember saying to myself, I looked at the guys and I'm like, Bruce is not going to be happy tomorrow. I just remember that.
No, the weird thing is Dallas technically split the season series with Nashville.
Yeah.
The difference is Dallas won all their games outright. Nashville won all of their games in shootouts or overtime. So if a couple of those games of the shootouts or overtime go in a different direction, Dallas does make the playoffs. That's how close it was. That's how razor thin the margin of error. Now, all that being said, next year, Dallas does not have to play Tampa 8 times in the season, which I think is very good for them and everybody else who got out of that division.
Oh, man, that Central was, from watching it game in and game out, was it that good? Because obviously Florida finishes second, but then there's the whole capture convention thing with Tampa, which we have beaten to death here on the show. But obviously Carolina was really good, and obviously Nashville came along with UC Saros. Was the Central Division as tight as it seemed towards the top, or was it just this mirage of these teams playing against each other and it looked really good?
See, I would say it was a very good division simply because Carolina was excellent during the regular season.
Oh, yeah.
Florida was excellent. But Tampa, when they decided they wanted to play, and from the Dallas Stars' point of view, pretty much every time Tampa played Dallas, it was we're going to continue to prove to you why we beat you in the Stanley Cup Finals. Interesting fact, Dallas played Tampa 8 times last year. In the first 7 games, they saw Andrei Vasilevsky. There was, even if Tampa had played someone else the night before, they saw Vasilevsky every single time until the final meeting of the season when Tampa was getting ready for that showdown with Florida to determine the second spot. That was the only time they saw Curtis McElhinney.
Yeah.
So there was a special rivalry with Tampa to prove a point to the Dallas Stars. And that makes it tough. I thought Carolina was excellent, but you know what? When Tampa was able to get Kucherov back and did what they did, hats off to them. They were the best team in hockey, and arguably the best team in hockey 2 years in a row. If you go back to the malfunction against Columbus, they've really been the best team in regular season for 3 straight years, and that's pretty phenomenal.
Still,
so look at that. Dallas was in a tough division.
Still haven't lost back-to-back games in the postseason. Now, granted, if you look at the bar being the Western Division last year, it's a pretty low bar to go underneath. So, and of course, there's many people that think the North Division was bad, and even though Montreal made it that far, there is some argument towards at least during the regular season. But let's get back to Dallas here. They've had a rather interesting offseason, and I say interesting in a good way, simply because of the fact that some of the moves they make. That you get some depth in goal, because obviously you need that with Braden Holtby. You get with Braden Holtby because of Ben Bishop. You sign Ryan Suter, which is completely ironic or coincidental, however you want to say it, going from Minnesota to Dallas. Take with that what you will. And you assign a guy like Luke Glendening for $1.5 million for a couple of years, adding some more depth down. Both can play center and the wing. I've seen them play both. But of course, you sign the big extension for Miro Heiskanen. I say this, and I said this before to all the other guests that I've had that are on the other teams. I'm like, if Dallas can avoid COVID and any other calamities that happened last year, this can be a real competitive playoff team.
Now, I'm going to assume that you have watched The Last Dance.
Jordan. Oh, yes.
Okay, for the Dallas Stars, now take away the 5 previous championships and Phil Jackson being the Zen Master. This year is sort of the Dallas Stars version of The Last Dance with this core of players. You look at the guys, you've got Jamie Benn is going to be 33. Tyler Seguin is going to be 30 this year. Pavelski is going to be 38. Radulov is on the downhill slide. He just barely got over the hump, but he's on the downhill slide toward 40 as well. So you're looking at this core of players. This is their last chance. They came so close 2 years ago to making the championship run and finishing it that they wanted to do 2 years ago. So for the Dallas Stars, this is not just another hockey season. This is the year. And also consider that after this year, Radulov's contract's up. Pavelski's contract's up. If they can't re-sign Klingberg, Klingberg's contract is up. And Rick Bonuses, the head coach, his contract ends this year too. So for the Dallas Stars, this is a make or break year. Now, the odds of the Stars losing Seguin, Radulov, Hintz, I don't know how Hintz did what he did on one leg. And there's one other factor involved here. When the Stars lost Alexander Radulov, they lost 2 players. They lost Radulov, and they mentally lost Denis Gurianov. Gurianov, who looked so good in the playoffs and was such a big performer 2 years ago, really seemed lost at times out there last year. What happened to him? If they can get him back, the offense is going to be pretty potent. Now, the guys you talked about, they added Ryan Suter, Jamie Alexiak. You knew you were going to lose Alexiak either to free agency or the expansion draft, one way or the other. They were able to replace Alexiak with what they thought was the best available option. Now, is Ryan Suter the next Chris Chelios, just that machine that takes care of himself and can play into his 40s? We don't know. What the Stars are gambling on is that for the last 2 years, Ryan Suter can be a top 4 defenseman, and this team's strength is their decor. So if you have Klingberg and Heiskanen and Suter and Lindell playing to where they need to play, it's going to be a whole different thing. And you talk about Braden Holtby. Well, you're a goalie. You know that an 80% save percentage on paper looks awful.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're facing 3 2-on-1s, 3 breakaways, and 5 shots from the slot, and you stop 8 of them,
it's not good.
Not so bad.
That Canucks team was bad. And of course, I watched a lot of the Leafs. I got to watch them play the Canucks all the times they did. And I said to myself, and they obviously saw Thatcher Demko as well, but I'm like, how is Holtby still standing after some of these games where the Leafs would double up in shots? And to your point, yeah, Holtby got a lot of work last year.
So this is a Dallas Stars team that you look with Bishop and Khudobin was historically, from a team standpoint, great at stopping pucks from going in the net. A couple of years ago, Bishop and Khudobin, Ben Bishop set the team record for the highest save percentage in the season. Don't get me wrong, Bishop's a great goalie, but a lot of that had to do with the team structure and they're keeping the pucks to the outside. If Holtby can play decently, that's going to be a fantastic move. Now, of course, the big question is if Bishop's knee heals and Anton Khudobin is back to where he was in the bubble, and Holtby raises his game, and Ottinger shows up at camp like a kid who wants to play in the NHL. Stars have a very pleasant problem come October.
It's always crazy when we say, oh, having a goaltending tandem is bad. It's good. It's great. Having 3 or 4, and all of a sudden you're like, because then you almost have to choose then, right? You have to choose which one you want. If Ben Bishop, of course, like you mentioned, if Bishop's knee heals and he comes back effective as well, because I don't know what kind of cap juggling they're going to have to do to make sure they can have all 3 at one point. Because obviously this year there's no taxi squad because of how the COVID's going to work. So you can't do that, unfortunately. But to your point, yes, having 3 NHL-ready goaltenders, possibly 4 if Ottinger comes back ready to go and wanting to play, it's the best problem to have. But then again, I'm glad I'm not Jim Nill, because you have to try to figure that out and try to figure out who you want to keep, and Rick Bowness being the head coach as well. And let's get on the bonus page here. Ever since he's been appointed the head coach, I have liked how he's coached this hockey team. How he was able to keep that team focused last season by any stretch in a very odd, and maybe just me being the underdog mentality, should have given him at least a few Jack Adams votes. And the way he was able to keep that team focused in the bubble, even he publicly saying, hey guys, yeah, this sucks being in this bubble. We've been here for 2 months, haven't seen anybody. It sucks being here, but we're going to keep playing. Keep that team driven all the way within 2 wins of the final. Do you think Jim Nill wants to sign him to an extension now, or do you think Bowness is just one of those old school guys? Let's see how I am at the end of the season, and then we'll go from there.
The only thing that isn't old school about Rick Bowness is the new Corvette he drives every other year. The man loves his Corvettes, but he is as old school as it comes. So his way of thinking is, I signed a 2-year deal to be head coach of the Dallas Stars. I am going to be head coach for 2 years. And at the end of that time, we will reevaluate the situation. The players love Rick Bowness. They will skate through a wall for Rick Bowness. They love the way he brought the defense to play more offensively. They love the structure. Rick Bowness is a good coach for this team. And it's an older team, so they respect where he is and where he came from. Don't forget, the Stars also have sort of an all-star lineup of assistant coaches as well. John Stevens, Todd Nelson, Jeff Reese with the goaltenders. You're not going to get much better. All that being said, if the Dallas Stars do not have a good year, do not have a good record, do not win playoff series, I could see the Stars going for a change. But you also have to remember that since Jim Nill has taken over as head as GM, the Stars have gone through Lindy Ruff, Ken Hitchcock, Jim Montgomery, Rick Bowness. You don't want to keep having that coaching carousel go through. You want one guy that's going to be the guy and be there for a long period of time. Remember, Jim Nill comes from your neck of the woods. He's a Detroit Red Wing, guy. You had Scotty Bowman, you had Mike Babcock. You had a long series of, even Jeff Blashill right now. You had a long series of guys behind the bench, so that when players came in, they weren't learning a new style or a new coach. They had the system in place. That's what they strive for. So we'll just have to see. Like I said, it's the last dance. Now, Jim Nill is not going to go Jerry Krause on Rick Bowness and just tell him to get out for some guy. But there's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made, and they'll be made after the season.
It's funny. Well, I love how you mentioned the Red Wings coaches. You skipped over Dave Lewis, but don't worry. All of Detroit wants to forget about Dave Lewis as well being a head coach here.
I'm going for guys that had tenure.
There you go. Yeah, Dave Lewis, 2 years of tenure. And let's be honest, had Scotty Bowman not retired, Jim Nill may have only had one coach the entire time. Nobody was firing Scotty Bowman in Detroit. At least the city would not have allowed him. And the late Mr. I would have said the same thing as well. I look at Tyler Seguin, and like you mentioned, he is 33 years old. I remember, he's going to be 30. He's going to be 30 this year.
30. They grow up so fast, Tyler.
I remember when he was getting drafted. He was playing for Plymouth. He's right down the road from, well, not right down the road, across the state. But, sorry, Michigan's not as big as Texas. It's a little bit closer if you say drive across state. Right. But I remember watching him in junior and thinking, this kid's going to be good. And he gets drafted by Boston. And I'm like, that kid's going to be good immediately. And then he's a big part of the Stanley Cup run. And then he gets traded a couple years later because Chiarelli, that was him. But he had, the injury bug kind of hindered him last season. Do you think he's going to come back at 100%? And do you think he can be as effective as he was when he was 100%? Because remember, that injury bug that he had started back in the bubble as well during that 2020 run.
Right. He put up a thing on Instagram. He had 2 separate major surgeries after the bubble. And to come back and play last year was very significant. Tyler Seguin, First of all, he is not as fast as he used to be. He's been playing in, you think about it, he's been playing in the league since 2011. He's heading into his 11th NHL season. Very few, maybe Connor McDavid, but very few people can keep that lightning fast speed for their entire career. What Tyler Seguin does, and this is when we talked about, the Stars losing in overtime and shootouts, would Tyler Seguin have been worth 4 more goals last year if he had been healthy? So when you talk about that, you talk about Tyler Seguin, he may not be as fast, but on the power play, who's better at the left circle with the one time in the Dallas Stars than Tyler Seguin? Nobody. Does he still know how to get in the right position to score goals? Absolutely. First game back, he scored. Tyler Seguin may not be as fast, but he is going to be effective because of the way he's quick, he knows how to put himself in scoring position, and he's not afraid to shoot the puck. He's not afraid to make things happen. If Tyler Seguin comes back and you get 25 to 30 out of him, it'll be fantastic because this team is still going to be built from the goaltender out. It's still going to be a defense-first team. So I don't know if you're going to see any 40-goal scorers, but if you can get 25-30 out of Seguin, 25-30 out of Pavelski, get Jamie Benn to 15 to 20, this team is going to be fine. Radulov throws another 20, this team will be fine offensively. And by fine, I mean 3 goals. This team needs 3 to win. That's what they need to get to.
The way this defense is built, absolutely. I know you're going to hate to hear me say this because you had to play them so many times last year, but the Nashville Predators in that 17 run of Subban, Ekholm, Ellis, and Suter, that top 4 was the best in the league. And you're starting to see that in Dallas having a good mix of veteran and younger talent as well. John Klingberg. You got to keep Klingberg. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm in the minority when I say that, but if you can try to keep Klingberg at a reasonable number, that is important because I think he is, obviously with Heiskanen coming up, I think he's the second best defenseman on this hockey club. You can correct me on that one there, Bruce.
Well, I'm not going to argue. Well, Jim Nill has come out and said that our priority right now is to sign John Klingberg to a long-term deal. They have made it perfectly clear that they want to sign Klingberg, they want to get him here, and they want him to stay here. It is tough to find a right-handed defenseman in the NHL today, and especially a right-handed defenseman that can move the puck and quarterback your power play. So the Dallas Stars, it's not that I don't think Klingberg is the second best defenseman, but Esa Lindell does so many things. I mean, it's an apples and oranges. Esa Lindell kills penalties. He's physical. He blocks shots. He's the guy you want on the ice at the end of the game. So it's just 2 different players. But when you throw in a Klingberg and then you throw in a Lindell and Haskins 22, you've got yourself 3 guys that can last another, if you can sign Klingberg, another 6-7 years together. And that's a great defensive core, and that's what you want if you're the Dallas Stars. And then they've got a guy named Thomas Harley. First round pick a couple of years ago. He might be knocking on the door after this year. And they signed Hakanpää in the offseason, which may not seem to be a big deal as far as the numbers Seth Jones and other guys we're getting. But he's going to be a 5 or a 6 on this team. Physical, a right-handed guy. The Dallas Stars love their defense situation right now. They absolutely love what they have coming up and what they have on the ice.
It's going to be interesting to see how they shape up in this revamped Central Division now with Arizona coming over. And I'm going to leave you on this question here. The Central is looking like to be a very dangerous division. Winnipeg's jumping back in the fray. Minnesota is coming off probably one of their best years in a long time. They will be I think they're going to take a little bit of a dip, especially if they can't sign Kaprizov before the year, but that's a discussion for another time. St. Louis is taking a dip. If they miss the playoffs, I'm not going to bat an eyelash. Obviously, you'll have Arizona down there towards the bottom and Nashville as well. Colorado's going to probably take the division. Chicago's going to be better. And then where do you see Dallas fitting in all this? Because all of a sudden, like I said, the way I just listed it off, I'm just seeing Dallas just move further and further and further up the division standings. I remember State of Hoppy 2 weeks ago said this with me. I see 5 Central Division teams in the playoffs this year.
Again,
you're right, exactly.
That seems to be the norm. When there's not, as long as there's not a worldwide pandemic, and I don't think any of us had that on the bingo card this year or last year for things that happen. It seems like 5 teams from the Central always make the Western Conference Finals, Western Conference playoffs. I can see that happening again this year. It's interesting that sort of Minnesota's being under the gun with Kaprizov. They need him back desperately. St. Louis with Tarasenko. I mean, training camp's a week and a half away, and those are up in the air. And that's going to be very interesting on how that plays out as the training camp and into the early season goes on. I like Dallas's chances to finish second or third in the division. And I say that because I don't think it matters to Dallas. If would it be nice to win the division? Sure, it'd be great to win the division. Does it matter? Not really, because Dallas right now is $4 million or so over the salary cap, because Jim Nill went out and he went on a shopping spree and bought everything he could buy in the offseason. And by the way, Luke Glendening in the face-off circles at the end of games is going to be huge for the Dallas Stars. That was one of those, I signed this guy because his face-off numbers are ridiculous. And at the end of the game, when you got a 1-goal lead, it's nice to have somebody who can go out there and win draws consistently, because Jordan Staal isn't coming over. When you look at the Dallas Stars, I like their chances. Now, they're $4 million plus over the salary cap. You know what Ben Bishop's number is on the AAV this year?
Isn't it 6 or 7?
No, it's $4 million.
Oh, so it's 4. Okay.
If Ben Bishop begins the year on the LTIR, you are perfectly at the salary cap. Just something to keep in mind.
So you're saying we're going to see Ben Bishop come back in round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs?
No, but I can see the Dallas Stars being very cautious with Ben Bishop, and then around January, okay, let's put him in here. Let's start getting him rounded up into shape. So if you can have a healthy Ben Bishop, or Braden Holtby returns to what he was with the Capitals, or Anton Khudobin becomes Bubble Dobby, as we call him here again, with that defense, and I think the offense going to be better, I can see this team being very dangerous, but it's all gearing toward April and May. The Dallas Stars season will be judged. And quite honestly, this core of players, this Pavelski, Ben, Sagan, Radulov, this group is going to be judged by 2022, April and May. Do they go far? Do they become what we all thought they could be? If the answer is yes, it's a successful season. If the answer is no, then you can look at the core. It's going to be time for Rope Hentz, Miro Heiskanen. We haven't even talked about Jason Robertson yet.
Oh, my gosh.
Those are going to be the guys who are going to be leading this team forward. Ottinger will be part of that. Harley will be part of that. So for this certain core of the Dallas Stars, this is the year.
It's going to be an interesting one. We're all going to watch the Dallas Stars in tow for sure. Man, I look at them and I'm like, this team has it. If they can get it done, it'll be interesting to see. Last dance, last chance, Bruce.
And that's just it. If you look at Twitter, apparently everything's going wrong on the Dallas Stars. Going to be the worst team ever. And, dogs and cats are living together, mass hysteria. Don't knee-jerk by 1 week, 1 game, 1 month. Look at the total picture. And that's what we for the Dallas Stars. Oh, by the way, did you notice the Dallas Stars drafted 4 guys from that we called in the U18s?
Yeah, no, I saw that, and I remember and said to myself, maybe Jim was listening to you there, Bruce.
Yeah, well,
not me at all.
Actually, he was listening to both of us. He sent me a very nice text saying how great a job we were doing.
Oh, well. Then again, we were getting notes passed to us from scouts telling us if we can make this sound good.
Yeah, it's always nice when you have your only audience is 100 scouts who are sitting there going, "Boy, what time does Russia play?"
Or what time does Canada play? Why are we here for this Belarus game? No one cares.
Yeah.
We have been chatting.
I enjoyed it, though, Tyler. I'd love to work with you again someday.
Hey, I keep pestering Jennifer about every month. Hey, Jennifer, where you need me? And if you ever come back to Texas, absolutely.
And bring the sticks.
Absolutely. I will bring the sticks. Especially, I have my golf bag. My wife gave me crap for it. I'm like, hey, I got to play golf when y'all were having it rain and snow up here in March. We have been chatting up here with Bruce LeVine. Follow him, guys, at Bruce LeVine Puck there on Twitter. Gives you all the latest and greatest of the Dallas Stars, and also catch him as well if you want to listen to the Dallas Stars broadcast, as he is the radio host of the Dallas Stars. Bruce, thank you once again for coming on. It was a pleasure catching up with you, and we'll definitely talk to you down the road.
Tyler, take care and keep up the good work.
All appreciate it, Bruce. We'll be back with more of the Kuehl Show right after this. And welcome back to the Kuehl Show, everyone, as we continue on this massive sprint of today's TKS. Of course, if you just missed it, we just talked to Bruce LeVine, radio host for the Dallas Stars, as well as Jordan DeShane to kick things off for the Buffalo Sabres talk. If you want to catch both those, it's okay. Don't panic. You can catch it later on the Kuehl Show YouTube channel. It'll be up tomorrow. Or if you want to just listen and not see our beautiful faces, make sure you check out the Kuehl Show on your favorite podcatcher, whether it be Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Radio FM, and probably some other third, fourth party sites that probably if you click it, it gives your computer bad bugs and viruses. But that's neither here nor there. Always check it out as well. Now our final guest of the night, as we are seeing Canada and Switzerland begin their semifinal game in the beautiful Wintrust Arena there in Calgary, home of the Calgary Dinos, by the way, for you U Sports fans north of the border. Let's be joined now by a member of the Five Timers Club. He is one of the co-captains of the Five Timers Club. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, the man, the myth, the legend, free agent broadcaster, Peyton Turnage. Peyton, how we doing, man?
Free agent for life, my friend. I tried and I failed. This summer was a complete disaster on the hiring front.
It was rough for me as well. Hence why I was okay with my wife buying a house for us, because I realized, well, what's the point of moving if I'm not going to get a job, right?
At least you have one of those.
Well, oh yeah, a job. I have like 4 part-time jobs.
Well, that and a wife, and yeah.
Oh, the wife. Oh yeah, and you want a dog too? You want a dog that chooses to when she wants to poop and tells you when she doesn't want to go outside, to be very sassy. I don't know, but that's how my corgi is. Wixie's she's been a putz today.
We just got a new dog too.
Oh, you guys did? Cool.
I don't know how to describe her. I think she's just a dumb poodle. She doesn't quite look like one, but you can tell there's a lot of poodle in her. Just the way she just gets on her hind legs and begs all the time. She's a little diva, but she's a sweetheart.
You're gonna have to
we gotta get rid of the licking problem though. She's really bad with that.
See, if their breath smells all the time, like if you don't keep them fresh, like Wixie gives me kisses, I'm like, I don't care. My sister-in-law Elizabeth, like, she won't even let her own dog kiss their 1-year-old, and I'm like, why not? What's wrong with the puppy giving kisses? I get it if she like doesn't stop for like 15 minutes, but like Wixie will come over and like, Wixie, give me a kiss. She'll come over, give me a kiss, and walk away. Now maybe it's because we trained her to do that, but I don't know. I've never had a issue with dog giving me kisses.
She's growing on me. I didn't really like her at first. Like, you're not very far in my heart if I'm not putting you on Instagram. So she's not Instagram official yet, but I think she's starting. I think she's getting there. We're making progress.
Wixie was 5 minutes and she was on my Instagram. But then again, if I didn't, I'm pretty sure Kelly would have told me, what is wrong with you? Don't you love our dog? Don't you love our baby? That's probably how it would have reacted. But she's out tonight. Thankfully, she's working, so she can't come barreling through the door because, unfortunately, the office door that I have, Peyton, is not soundproof. And everyone can hear me probably right now. Wixie's probably saying, why is Dad talking about me? Because
everyone in your neighborhood could probably hear you.
No, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty, like, if people are outside, like, I can hear Wixie bark through the glass slider door, but, like, in our bedrooms, like, we can't hear cars go by. We can hear if there's, like, fireworks or sirens, but, like, it's not super, I don't want to say super audible, but it's very well condensed, at least in the bedrooms. In this office, you're right. My neighbors probably are flipping me the bird right now through their shades.
Them's the breaks, as they say.
Well, especially since because I could tell by the comment you made there, Peyton, that you loved my Instagram preview for the show tonight, where I just started screaming at my phone.
Yeah, that's really, it sets a high bar. It's sets the tempo for the evening.
Well, at that point, I had about halfway down my coffee, my Death Wish coffee. By the way, I know I wish I tried to get them to be a sponsor, but they don't want to be my sponsor. I love Death Wish coffee. I only just do it for show days because it's one of those things. If you have a lot of like a certain kind of caffeine, it doesn't work, it becomes obsolete. So I have Death Wish coffee before a show, and it gets me so jacked up that I just start yelling and screaming nonsense. And poor Jordan got the brunt of it right off the top of the show. It got a little bit easier with Bruce, and I'm starting to come down a little bit, but it helps me focus and gets the energy up to like 12 on a scale of 10.
Well, you said Jordan DeShane. I was thinking, DeShane? What?
Not DeShane. Not your favorite Preds player, Peyton. Not your favorite Preds player.
Not my favorite number 95 in the league.
Who else wears 95 in the league?
Andre Burakovsky.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, Rantanen's 96. That's right. I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, wait, who else wears 95? I knew a kid that wore 95 when I played travel hockey, but that's because he's like, I'm like Crosby. I'll wear my birth year. He wasn't that good. He was not Crosby.
95 on Matt Duchene is so hideous. I'm sorry. Like we wore number 9 all those years. Of course, that's taken by Philip Forsberg.
Right.
But 95, like they're like, what's the tie-in there? He wasn't born in 1995.
I'm trying to figure out what he grabbed when he was in Ottawa, because started in Ottawa was 95.
Yeah.
Because he's
Yeah.
not a
He
95,
traded
is he?
Columbus.
He's not a 95,
traded-
right?
Oh, he's 95, yeah.
Oh my Lord, I am old.
Yeah, hideous on a Preds jersey. He looks terrible.
But-
I think it adds to why people think he sucks so much, because he does suck. But
Well, okay, if Matt DeShane was getting paid $1.5 million, would you say he sucked?
yes,
Oh, okay. I was about to say, is it one of those money things? If it was like, oh, he's $8 million, yes, he sucks. It's like if Mitch Marner was getting paid $4.5 million, I wouldn't want him to not play hockey for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But he makes $10 million, and it makes me not want him to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But that's just me being a salty Leafs fan.
well, you just look at what he did in Colorado, the cup of coffee he had in Columbus. Far cry from what he's doing now. I don't know what happened to the guy, but hopefully he gets it together. I'm still giving him benefit of the doubt. We can talk about the Preds lineup this season maybe here in a little bit, but I've still got him possibly on that second line. But everybody wants him on the third starting out this year.
Well, let's start on that. We'll get to the big stories from this past weekend here in just a moment. Let's start with the Preds here, just because we may as well wrap up the Central Division. The only team I don't think we'll get anyone from Colorado, folks, and I do apologize. My buddy Eric Pessolano, I have not been able to get out to him yet. But what's to know about Colorado? They're really good. They have Kemper in goal. If he plays like he did in Arizona in 2019, 2020, they'll be fine.
They lost half the roster, and everyone still thinks they're going to win the Stanley Cup. That's what you need.
I don't say the Stanley Cup. I say the Central Division. That's as far as I'm going to go with them, because my Stanley Cup picks in the preseason, just by February, I'm realizing I am completely wrong. I also, by the way, I should clarify for everyone, I do not pick the Leafs to win the Cup. I am not one of those people that does that. For that reason, I'm picking the Edmonton Oilers this year. Can't go wrong with that, because if they suck, well, that's part of it. If they win, I look like a genius. Anyways, Nashville. How are we looking at this season, Peyton? Are we expecting anything from Nashville? Because obviously you have the big moves from the offseason, like getting Cody Glass for Nolan Patrick. Huge move. But of course, we mentioned you dump Ryan Ellis to Philadelphia. You get a couple players from that as well. And you sign David Riddick to obviously be backing up, or at least be a 1B for younger UC Saros. What is your expectation for this hockey club? Is playoffs even an option, or is it just going to be let's be competitive and not get blown out every night?
They'll go as far as the youth movement takes them. As I look at the roster and as I've been penciling them in, there are a few guys on there that I think don't belong. I think that the Preds need to go ahead and go full bore with this youth movement, which they've taken steps in doing so.
What do you mean? You don't want Ben Harper to play 18, 20 minutes a night?
That's exactly where I was going. That third pair, I cannot believe, one, that they re-signed Harper. It's one of the worst contracts they've ever given out, besides giving Austin Watson $1.5 million per season. Then you got Mark Borowiecki. Now, you got to figure out your D pairs here, because you're going to have Yossi and Carrier, and you hope to God Carrier is like what he was in the playoffs. Otherwise, he's going to be Jonathan Blum 2.0.
Hey.
Then you got, of course, Matthias Ekholm on pair 2. Now, do you go ahead and try Dante Fabro again? Or do you slide in Philip Myers? I guess you can't go wrong either way, which means you would have one of either Fabro or Myers on that third pair. And you got to give that guy somebody to play with. You don't want to play them with Ben Harper or Mark Borowiecki. That doesn't accomplish anything. Those stone, rugged, standstill defensemen don't do anything for guys with great two-way potential like Fabro and Myers. So I think a guy like I almost said Brad Ferentz, David Ferentz would fit in perfectly. Just coming out of college, 22 years old, came in for a couple of games last year and looked solid. He looked really good in the summer camp too. If you don't go with him, then you go with Brad Davies, who was acquired in the Subban trade.
Right.
A little bit of a defensive liability, but brings it offensively. I think you got to go ahead and just go for it. Put in one of those young guys. I don't think it's worth it putting a Easter Island head on that third defense pair. I don't think it really accomplishes anything. And the other guy I would say the Preds need to go ahead and jettison is Nick Cousins. He's slotted to be on either wing on the third line. He's got one more year on his contract, and I think that's a perfect guy to send off to a team that may want one more veteran. Because, again, you're log jamming that third line pretty much, where there's a guy like maybe Tanner Jeannot can slide up there. Phil Tomasino has a chance to be in the top 9 this season. And the guy that I think that should be up there, I think a lot of people think I'm nuts when I say this, is Yakov Trenin. I think Yakov Trenin has what it takes to be a third-line winger. He's had the potential. He's been this big, rugged guy all along, but when he first came to the Preds, he was billed as this big, skilled Russian, and he showed signs of it last season. Think about that through-the-legs goal against Detroit that he scored.
Yeah.
There's flashes there. So I think you would put him on that third line. I've got him with Cody Glass and Luke Cunnin. So I think you shed a little salary with jettisoning Cousins, and you allow the youth movement to continue on.
So, and I because that lineup makes sense, and I still think Tomasino has an opportunity to make some hay here, and he's going to get more minutes this year, I believe, at least from afar, looking on the outside. And I look at the defense is a little bit older, with a couple of spits here and there. Obviously, Ekholm is still there, and it's funny, we'd mentioned Ekholm when I was talking with Bruce LeVine, because we were talking about how Dallas's top 4 is going to be something really good, a mixture of young and old. And I'm like, this looks just like the lineup for the 2017 Nashville's top 4, having Ellis and Ekholm and Subban and Suter at their peak. Or not Suter. Oh gosh, I said Suter on the. Who am I missing here?
Well,
Yossi, Roman Yossi. How do you forget Roman Yossi, the leading scorer of this Nashville team?
The NHL cover athlete every year in Switzerland, which we'll get to. But
oh my gosh, people. That's one thing people forget too. Oh, actually, well, you're right. We'll save that for a second. That's a good question for you. Does Roman Yossi lead Nashville in points for a 3rd year in a row?
Probably. That's not the only good answer I can give you. Probably. I don't think it's going to come from Philip Forsberg.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to come from either DeShane or Johansson. That forward core, it's score by committee once again. There's not really any game breakers within that forward core. And you got Roman Yossi, who eats 25 minutes a game, it seems like, and he's the top power play guy. So he's probably going to lead the team again, and we shouldn't be surprised.
Is this something that is a concern, that Roman Yossi is the top scorer for your team? Because listen, this team made the playoffs last year. Actually made the playoffs, not like the bubble. They made it to the bubble, lost in the qualifying round in 2020. They actually made it to the playoffs with that kind of setup. Now, yes, UC Saros got on this amazing heater, helped get them to the playoffs, and by golly, gave them a shot against Carolina in that first round. Do you think that it can happen again, where UC Saros gets hot? David Riddick, big save Dave. I mean, obviously we didn't see that much in Toronto, but that's regardless. That's the Leafs. I don't want to cry about them any more than I have to. But do you think, like, if Nashville gets hot at the right time like they did last year, they can make something? Or do you think that they burned any magic they had on last season?
I don't know how Saros repeats that performance again. That was almost superhuman-like. Now, the first half of the season, we were wondering, okay, I tweeted it. I said UC Saros is not the goaltender of the future. And
slap. Here comes the fact of truth, Peyton Turnage.
He came back from an injury, and I want to say he had maybe a shutout in his first game back. I want to say that was the case. It was a very stellar performance, and he didn't stop after that. And I think I was on your show one time when I was ranting about Saros, saying that he's a small goalie in a big goalie's world.
It ain't going to work.
No. So I think obviously he's got number 1 goalie potential. I think he can do very well this year. It's asking a lot for him to repeat last year's performance. And then David Riddick, I have my theory on David Riddick.
Oh boy.
I think
here we go.
Was Calgary's guy. I think he was Czech Republic's guy. He was going to be their man in the Olympics. And the Mikael Granlund Hockey is Fun game ruined him.
That's
March,
true.
Was it 24th? Whenever it was. No, COVID had already struck by then. It was like the end of February. I went to the game with John Jensen.
Yep.
And Granlund scored with under a second left to tie it, and then won it in overtime.
Oh,
Me, David Riddick, has not been the same since.
that was the game. That was obviously not the Kachuk game because the Kachuk game was in 2019, right? It was in like October, November that year.
Yes.
That
And
season.
that game ruined Pekka Rinne's career.
Oh,
Ended it.
gosh.
That week I was on Penalty Box Radio. It's the first time I was ever on the radio show, and I said Pekka is playing like he wants a cup. And then that game happened where I think the Preds fell from like a 4-1 lead and then like a 5-3 lead and lost in overtime. Funny story. I was living with my passive aggressive roommates in their house the night of that game.
Not calling anyone out.
Worst people I've ever known. And he was playing, anytime I wanted to watch NHL hockey, he was playing World of Warcraft. This is no lie.
Oh, gosh.
So it just ate up the
data.
internet.
Yep.
So in overtime, that shot comes off Rinne, the rebound comes up, and I see Kachuk take it between his legs. Freeze frame.
Oh,
It's gone.
you should have screenshotted it. It would have been perfect.
Blows out.
Then you would have looked like a genius. Watch, you would have screenshot. I did this live. I caught this amazing shot live of Matthew Kachuk.
So I think, okay, this game's going to the shootout. I'm looking on Twitter. Nope.
It went in.
I look at Matthew Kachuk wins it in overtime.
Because that was like dying seconds, right?
Yeah, it was almost like the hockey is fun game, Gremlin game, but in reverse.
Gosh. You love hockey, right? Hockey's fun.
Nashville Calgary is one of the most underrated rivalries. It was really hot in the mid 2000s, and I feel like it's coming back.
Oh yeah, they didn't play in 04. Did they play in 06 against each other?
As in playoffs, or
Yeah.
They've never played each other.
Oh, they never played each other in playoffs. Okay. Because I'm trying to think. I know Calgary had their issues after they went to that run in 04. But no, they're fun games because whenever I see them, I'm like, this could be an interesting matchup. Now I say Calgary and Nashville are in the same kind of boat of where I'm like, all right, are you going to be good or bad? Or you have goaltending that's questionable. I go into this year for Calgary the same way. I'm like, you could make the playoffs. I mean, sheesh. Then again, I'm pretty sure, Peyton, if you put Nashville in the Pacific Division, they're a shoo-in to make the playoffs in that top three. My goodness. I still have the firm belief of outside Edmonton, Vegas, it's a crapshoot. It's a roll of the dice, and whoever sticks lands. But
I will say Seattle has made a couple pretty good moves since they made the expansion draft. The Marcus Johansson signing, I'm kind of a fan of that. That shores up their center just a little bit.
Which people were questioning, like they're going to do the Vegas thing. They're going to get tough on defense, have good wingers, but they're going to have zero centermen. You get Marcus Johansson, albeit it's only going to be for a couple years. He's getting older. And yeah, you're right. Seattle is going to be up there. But I'm under the belief, before we move on, your Peyton, that, and I said this with Bruce, said it with pretty much everyone else I talked about the Central, it's going to be another situation where you see 5 teams from this division go to the playoffs. Both wild card spots will go to whoever's 4 and 5 in the Central. If you were to look at right now, the season starts today, and you quickly simulate the season in your mind, where do you think Nashville ends up? Because like I said, Colorado, number 1, I think it's undisputed. But Winnipeg's there. Minnesota is this big fat question mark because we're shortly away from from the training camp, and Kaprizov is apparently still in Russia. But St. Louis is going to take a dip. Dallas will be good. Bruce says he's going to be either 2 or 3 with Dallas, and I can look at that as a logical option. Chicago's going to be good. Where do you think Nashville sits in all of this?
They're somewhere in that 4 to 6 range, in my opinion. And again, they will go as far as their youth movement takes them. That Ryan Ellis trade is going to have to come through, which was essentially Ryan Ellis for Cody Glass and Philip Myers.
Yep.
Cody Glass has a lot to prove, and he's going to be in that middle 6 at center. Does he take a second line role? Does he anchor that third line? And again, play with a guy that maybe like Luke Cunnin or Yakov Trenin. Does he play with Matt DeShane? Where does Philip Tomasino fit in this conversation? Is Eli Tolvanen going to finally be a consistent 5-on-5 scorer? Is Philip Forsberg going to be a consistent player, or is he just going to light it up in February and no time else? A lot of question marks with this team. And again, it's very much score by committee, and they play a rough, rugged style that we haven't really quite seen before. It's kind of like a throwback Predators team, which you can love that or hate it. It's just kind of what's been working for them lately. So yeah, I see them around the bubble. They're not going to be one of the worst teams. That's clearly going to be Arizona.
Heck yeah.
We'll see about St. Louis, how far they fall, and what
Or
happens with their goaltending.
Or if Jordan Binnington actually finally fights someone and gets knocked out, and he realizes he actually couldn't fight a squirrel if he wanted to. But that's that. I'm nothing personal about that.
I think I might have mentioned this last time I was on the show, but COVID ruined the Jordan Binnington, Justin Bieber shootout. We never got that.
Oh my gosh. Well, at this point, if I'm Justin Bieber, I'm not taking it, because if you score once, you're gonna need your security guys to come out and protect you, because Binnington will. Well, actually, no. Here's what Binnington will do, kids. This is my annoying little rant or whatever with them. Binnington will come out, go up to Bieber, get in his face, yell at him, scream, maybe give him a shove or whatever, but will not do anything. I don't know what it is with Benzie, and I have talked with Laura Storian about this as well, about the Blues, and I'm like, do you think he actually could hold himself in a fight? And she's like, I think so. But then again, I wouldn't go fighting Devin Dubnyk, which we were so close from last season.
Hey, he's a good old boy. Play for the Owen Sound Attack. He's
15, what was that, 16 years ago? It was literally a salary cap and 2 CBAs ago that Jordan Binnington was the junior hockey there, Don Cherry. Come on. It was a great 2019 season. Had a great run. Should have been the Conn Smythe Trophy winner if you ask me. Was a Calder candidate, deservedly so. Boy, did we realize that was a flash in the pan I've ever seen in my life. Good Lord. Who's their backup this year?
Billy Husso?
Yes, Billy Husso is going to be their backup.
Oh,
I think Joel Hofer's in their minor league system, who had a good junior career. So pretty much the epitome of Jordan Binnington, but I don't see Joel Hofer losing his mind over nothing. So I think that's good for them. Joel Hofer, who actually won a World Junior Gold Medal, while Jordan Binnington backed up Malcolm Subban, just to show you how good that goaltending tandem was that year for Canada. Anyways, I agree with you. I think the 4 to 6 range of bubble team is a good spot for Nashville, just based on how the rest of this division is looking. It's looking like it's going to be competitive and good, but I think 2 teams, 2, maybe 3, depending on how Chicago does. If Fleury is Marc-Andre Fleury that we saw in Vegas last season, they could certainly separate themselves. But kind of similar to how the Central Division was last year, it may be a dogfight between 2 teams for possibly that second wildcard spot.
Well, it's funny because when you asked me where the Preds stack in the Central, I had to remember that Columbus is not in the Central. Detroit is not in the Central.
Tampa's not in the Central.
Tampa are not in the Central. So, yeah, last season has kind of ruined my perception of what division the Predators are in. I need another season of hockey to get refreshed on that.
I will say this, and whether you call it because they live in the state or whatever, but I think Detroit's going to be better this year. So maybe it's a good thing that instead of having to play Detroit 8 times a year, you're going to have to play Arizona 4, and you, knock on wood, should be able to get 8 points from Arizona this year. Because I don't even know who their goaltender is going to be this year. They're going to, I think, is it Aiden Hill? Aiden Hill's going to be their goaltender? No, he's in Tampa.
Hill's on the Sharks.
No, he's with the Sharks now. That's right. Who is their goaltender?
Yeah. Carter Hutton.
Oh, that's right. Poor Carter.
Carter Hutton. I'm trying to remember who the other guy is. They decided to go with the Buffalo strategy.
You know what?
Be as terrible as you can be.
I had such high hopes for Carter went to Buffalo. I'm like, yes, he's going to be a starting goaltender, and they're going to be good. And then they won like 10 games in a row, and then that game against Toronto when Austin Matthews won the game winner in overtime, it was like a playoff game. I'm like, yes, Buffalo's going to be good. It's going to be fun to play him. And just this big old fart. And that's how it's been ever since.
For Buffalo and for Carter Hutton.
Oh, yeah.
If you ask Nashville fans, he's still a fan favorite. People loved him. He would come on the broadcast with the headset downstairs and was really good talking with the announcers. And at the end, he would always say, hey, thanks for having me, guys.
All right. You ready for this? The Arizona Coyotes have the lowest AAV for their 2 goaltenders this season, at least listed on capfriendly.com. Carter Hutton signed 35-plus contract for $750,000. After things went in Buffalo, I get it. Minimum wage contract. Josef Koronar is his backup, also making $750K. Totally forgot that he was still in the league. No offense to our Sharks fans. I mean, our San Jose Barracuda fans out there. Holy moly. This, oh boy.
Devin Dubnyk's still a free agent.
Here comes 2007, 2008 Arizona Coyotes, kids. They are going to be fun to watch. Wayne Gretzky's like, man, yep, this is what I had too. Well, actually, he had Brian Boucher back in those days. At least he had a goaltender. But I don't think Carter Hutton's going to get 7 straight shutouts, though. I don't think that's going to happen.
Not going to have, can't sign Curtis Joseph out of the blue.
Boy.
Can't claim Ilya Brizgalov off waivers.
What was, out of all the things that Brian Burke did, he could have done something with that. But then again, at that point, it was a backup, and him and Jaguar were the tandem there for that cup run. But how do you not trade him? Or try to get him for something like a 7th or whatever. But then again, I'm not Brian Burke, and I didn't go to law school and play for Providence and get in line brawls and parking lots. And for those that don't know, before Brian Burke was signed on by the now working for the Pittsburgh Penguins as the head of hockey ops, go watch the Sportsnet series Hey Berkey. It's a YouTube series where it's like all animated stuff with him and Jeff Merrick talking about old stories from Brian Burke's illustrious career, both being a general manager and an NHL exec and a lawyer for the NHL. Like, the stories are great. Obviously, there is the story about him getting the Sedin twins, but there's also like him almost getting into a fight with Steve Tambellini. Kevin Lowe, right? Kevin Lowe over the Dustin Penner thing, where he literally said he was going to fight him in a barn. Which, knowing Berkey, I believe it. He would have fought Kevin Lowe in a barn. And there's that. There's also how literally there was one phone call away from getting Wayne Gretzky to go to Vancouver. It would have cost, I think, Kirk McLean, a couple of top end defensemen they had at the time. So Wayne Gretzky would not have gone to Los Angeles. He would have gone to Vancouver. And he would have had to have worn the ugly black and yellow and red V-necks they were wearing back in the day. What was the other one that was really good? Endless stuff with Lou, guys drinking on the bus. Just so many great stories. And
he expands on all that in his book.
Berkey's Law.
I've listened to the audiobook, Berkey's Law. That's a great book, and he actually narrates it in his voice, which is, that's worth the price.
Oh man, listen. Berkey, and that's my next book. After I finish the Ken Dryden's The Game, the book he wrote while he was playing in Montreal. Once I finish that, that's going to be my next book, is Berkey's Law. I don't think, and this is why, I don't know, did you ever listen to the Steve Dangle audiobook? Because I read it. I didn't do the audiobook. Like, could you imagine anyone else doing Steve Dangle's book other than Steve Dangle's?
Well, the cool thing about him with his audiobook is that when he kind of delves into his own thoughts, you're kind of with him in that moment. You hear how he's thinking about different things. And I feel like that's kind of the magic of audiobooks.
Right.
You get the sense of what someone is actually thinking and how they're feeling in that moment, because they're telling you. I have a hard time. If I listen to an audiobook, I don't like listening to ones where the narrator isn't the author. Again, the author was there. They lived those moments, and you're in that moment with them.
At least for biographies, obviously. Obviously fiction is whatever, but for biographies, yeah. Fiction. Well, no, I don't do fiction. I can't either. I don't. I tried reading a fiction book once. My wife and I got a library card because I wanted to get back reading again, and I'm like, this is stupid. I can just go watch Netflix and do this. It'd be a better waste of my time. With books.
The book is so much better.
Oh gosh almighty. And I go to frickin' Harry Potter movies and people act surprised when Dumbledore gets killed. Oh, spoiler, by the way. For those people that have been living under the rock for the last 15 years. Let's jump back to hockey here, even though I love talking about Brian Burke. And if I ever had Brian Burke on the show, I would ask permission, like, Brian, can I just ask you whatever I've always wanted to ask you? Like, this may have nothing to do with Pittsburgh. Like, can I just ask you about you? I would literally need his permission, because that would be a 2-hour show with Brian Burke. I would need to set, I'd have to probably pay him to get on the show to be here that long, to waste his time like that. Because I have a lot of questions for Berkey. It would be a fun interview for me. For him, it'd probably be the worst day of his life. Back to hockey here. Let's get to the news from this past weekend. A lot of stuff went on, of course. Give you the dumb stuff, if you will. well, maybe not totally dumb. Denmark, Latvia, and Slovakia getting the final Olympic spots over the Olympic qualifiers weekend. Denmark, for the first time ever, will be playing in the Olympics in men's hockey. Congratulations to them. Had a couple of extensions. Dylan Dubé signing on for 3 by 2.3 with Calgary. Andrei Svechnikov, a big sign. We'll get to another one here with Carolina in a second. But big move there. 8 by 7.75. Resigns with Carolina. Sean Couturier signs a big extension with Philadelphia. 8 by 7.75 as well. But the big contract, Peyton Turnage, that we have to mention is the offer sheet that has been signed by one Jesperi Kotkaniemi. The team that gave it to him, the Carolina Hurricanes. For those that have not really paid attention to hockey the last 2 years, the Montreal Canadiens offered Sebastian Aho an offer sheet when he was an RFA a couple years back. And it didn't work out. Well, Aho signed it, but of course Don Waddell made the very important quote saying it made his job a lot easier because that was a contract at the time that Carolina was able to afford. Easy deal. Aho's going to be a Cane for a while. So then 2 years later, because apparently Carolina was bored on a Thursday, whatever day it was, they go after Jesperi Kotkaniemi. 1 year by $6.1 million. Also in that contract is a total that leads up to the number 15, which is Kotkaniemi's number. The signing bonus is the kicker of them all. $20. Hey, Peyton, what number is Sebastian Aho? Exactly, number 20. Now,
for the podcast listeners, I put 2 fingers and then my fist.
Well, fist meaning 0, not fourth down for you football people out there. But anyways,
hockey porn.
The bunch of jerks mentality is fantastic. I love it. I love how they owned up to it when Don Cherry called them out that season. It was great. But then this team goes out and signs a guy like Tony DeAngelo. And then they do this. And I'm saying to and I love Luke DeCock, writes for the Raleigh News and Observer down there in Carolina. Great guy. He even wrote an article with the title after the saying, with the Tony DeAngelo signing, here you guys are, you're a bunch of jerks. Like, he pretty much said, hey guys, this team is owning up to that mentality to a T. Now they do this, Peyton. And I say to myself, this is pure nonsense to a T, but are they being serious with this?
Well, I can't defend Carolina anymore. Had a soft spot for them for the longest time, and it's not about them defeating Nashville in the playoffs. It's how their Twitter account reacted to it. Endless, tired banner jokes, which we've heard for over the past 3 years. Like, okay, we get it.
Since that 18 season,
too,
yeah.
Carolina, including you guys. And so kind of was done with them after that. And I've made the meme. It was like Carolina in these playoffs, and it's the meme of a guy on the podium, and he's just drinking champagne and kissing the girls and shooting the bird, and he's third.
Oh, and it's a Formula. It's literally a Formula One driver. Get those points, boys.
And they didn't even finish third. So and then the DeAngelo thing and I don't even know what they said about him. I've assumed they did the whole, he made mistakes in his life before, and we're going to help him be a better man. And
like, let's put it this way. Alex, captain of the Carolina Crusades himself, did not like that signing. The man who cheers for the Canes with this blind love affair even said, all right, this is stupid.
But are we forgetting that he sucks? Like,
well, okay.
Are we forgetting that he was like terrible in the last game he played in and got dunked on by Matt Barzal?
I will say this: yes, he was getting Norris votes. He did have a good year in 1920, but when the whole thing went down with Georgiev and his teammate and having to punch him, I'm like,
he's on Parler.
Oh my gosh!
Say more.
And we'll get to the contract thing in a second, folks. But I tell you this: I was listening to Staff and Graph podcast. I love listening. Rachel Dory is awesome. She was a former video coach with the New Jersey Devils. Probably going to be a GM one day if someone actually gives her a job. I don't know why. She works for Elite Prospects right now.
She's amazing. Someone hire her, please.
She is fantastic. Her and Mike Stevens said, because they were talking about the jerseys in a sec. Actually, you know what? We'll say that for a second. Let's finish up here with with talking about Kotkaniemi. We'll get to the jersey logos in a second because we will talk about it here. We didn't do it last week, I know, but I needed someone that can really I see eye to eye with on this, and that's Peyton Turnage, even though we're going to have very different opinions, possibly. But do you think that, looking at it from the Canadian side here, if you're Marc Bergevin, knowing you still have to sign Carey Price at 10 plus for a few more years, and knowing that it is only a 1 year deal for 6.1, and yes, you do need center depth in Montreal, do you match this offer sheet, or do you say, you know what, first and third picks, they'll take those in my pocket, I'm going to go get someone else with these things?
That's exactly what you do. You take the picks in a highly touted draft, and you take the spot that was taken by Kotkaniemi, and you bring back Jonathan Drouin.
Well, that's still an unknown right now. Probably should make that clear. That is still an unknown with Jonathan Drouin. Haven't heard. I've heard it's getting better, but have not heard anything official. But continue.
Yeah, I think that's what you got to do there. Two very similar type players, and yeah, you hope that the Drouin is okay mentally. I still think they need to find a way to trade him to the Avalanche, which that would be a disaster. But for every other team in the league, because you would have Drouin and McKinnon back together, but that is neither here nor there.
No, Marty Ferk's Marty Ferk's not there. Doesn't matter. Marty Ferk's not there.
Yeah, that's true. You go ahead and take the picks, man. To my knowledge, this was going to put them over the cap if they matched it. And, I mean, you've already stunted his growth. You just take the picks, man. And you let Carolina be a bunch of jerks, and you hope that he's inconsistent with them.
I get why Montreal would want to keep him. He was really good in the playoffs. And yes, there was the whole health.
He's a nightmare for Leafs fans.
He was a nightmare to play against, and I get it. There was the issue with the healthy scratching during the postseason. I understand that when he was, signaling up to the press box when he scored against Toronto. I understand there is all that. And if now that he already signed this, how is he going to come back? How is he going to be looked at by the locker room now? There is all that to be taken into account here. But yeah, to your point, I get why Marc Bergevin matches this deal, but it would put him well over the cap. You're going to have to do some cap circumvention, finagling, whatever. Obviously, yes, Shea Weber is out of the picture, being out for the year with the injury that he has, the surgery as well. But here's the thing, too. If I'm Marc Bergevin, I'm just took their cap friendly. They have used $1.5 million in LTIR. I don't know where they're using it, but they are. So add 6.1 to that, kids. They will be a team. Remember how Dougie Hamilton joked about how they lost to a team that's 18 mil over the cap? Well, the kids, they're going to be almost 10 mil over the cap if they get Jesperi Kotkaniemi. So my thing is this. If you're Marc Bergevin, say, you know what, take the picks, call them on their bluff, let them take that contract. And yes, it is for one season. I get that. But you know what? It'll force Carolina to make some moves that they probably don't want to make because, well, actually, I'm not sure. I know that if Montreal matches the offer, they can't trade Kotkaniemi. I don't know if it's the same way for Carolina. But he's still an RFA, Peyton. People have to remember this. Even after this contract is done next season, he's still an RFA, which means that you're going to have to sign him by CBA rules 105% of his current salary, which means you're looking at about a $6.5 million contract for Kotkaniemi minimum next year. I would take the picks.
As I'm looking at it, Carolina is right at the salary cap. They're right at zero space remaining.
Yeah, it says projected cap space 0, but they are using LTIR because as of right now, they're spending a little over 83 mil for this season alone because they do have everyone signed and they have a goaltending tandem that's costing them $6.5 million. Antti Ranta's still getting $2 million. I don't know how the heck that's a thing. $2 million for as cheap as Don Waddell is, or as Tommy Dundon is. We're going to drop $6.1 million just to spite Montreal. And we're going to give Antti Ranta, who hasn't played more than 20 games in the last 2 years, $2 million. You're doing a great job there, buddy. Hey, how's that All-American Football League treating you over there?
How's Alex Nedeljkovic doing?
Oh, my gosh. Like that, I still laugh at that. Now, granted, yes, Nedeljkovic could play horrendous behind Detroit's defense, and all the Carolina fans would be like, see, he wasn't that good after all. You know what? We're going to see Mrazek in Toronto blue, and you know what? He may not be as good as he was in Carolina, because Carolina does have a good defense. I'm not going to knock them on that at all. But that can take us now into this jersey conversation. So for those that don't know, about a week and a half ago, the NHL announced that they're going to have logos, sponsored logos, on the sweaters this upcoming season. And you know what? There were some people that did the old school, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Speaking of Brian Burke, I'm pretty sure he's crawling out of his skin now that he's going to have to see Sidney Crosby have a PPG logo on his chest. However, I'm okay with it, Peyton. At this point, as long as it's not like egregious, European level hockey kind of advertisements on there, that's fine. Just something small like how the NBA does it, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. As long as it's not invasive in size or contrasting colors.
Right.
Like Toronto, let's say they have a red sponsor on their jersey. I think that's going to be an eyesore. I think a lot of people are going to have problems with it. So you need the logo to blend into the jersey, which I think these companies might. I would think they wouldn't have a problem doing that.
Well, the thing is that it's probably going to be Scotiabank unless someone else comes in. But they had the Scotiabank logo on their helmets. They just made it plain white though, so it was blue and white. It blends in. And I know some people are like, "Oh my gosh, how can Bell be on? Because it is the Bell Center in Montreal. How could they do that?" Well, just turn it, instead of having a blue Bell, just have it be a white Bell logo. You can do that. I mean, you're not completely changing the company's image by making the logo white. Now, I'm pretty sure, Peyton, you can probably agree with me on this. It's probably going to be Bridgestone in Nashville. And I'll be honest, on their helmets, it didn't look awful. I don't think it'd be bad on their sweater either.
Speak right. Sorry. You'll just look on my Twitter. I tweeted a picture of what it would look like with Granlund.
Oh, boy. Oh, yeah, I did see that. Hold on. Let's take a look here. Where is it? Oh gosh, Peyton,
also
where'd you go?
One with John Jensen State Farm logo on there too. So.
Oh gosh, oh my gosh, John Jensen on State Farm. It's wonderful. Let me see here. I think it would go on the. Well, do they have the C's, the captain logos on the left on the left chest?
On the other one, yeah.
Okay, so that would make sense. Obviously, I loved how you didn't even use a PNG. You just used a straight JPEG on there.
The PNG didn't have the white outline, so I had to,
That's true.
I think it's kind of a white. I looked at it without a white outline and it didn't look right. So
yeah, and that's the thing too, is that the league, I believe, gets final approval for most of these logos, and I'm sure that the teams realize, all right, this would look bad. Like if Detroit had, I don't know, just for fun, Hulu, you're not going to put green on the Red Wing sweater. You're not going to do that. Michigan State fans may love it, but they can go kick rocks. They're probably not going to do that. They're going to make sure. Exactly. Oh gosh, they're going to do Little Caesars. It's going to be orange.
Pizza.
Oh no.
Oh, well, they can look bad like their team.
Chris Ilitch is probably just getting all wet in his pants, probably thinking about it. But good Lord. Then again, I think Chris Ilitch is going to ruin the Red Wings, same way the Pagulas do the Buffalo Sabres. But you didn't hear that from me though. Unfortunately, Marion is still around. Thank goodness. At least keep everything in check.
If they run into problems, he can just open another.
Open another one. That'll save the team. Yeah, because the Tigers are doing so well too. Good Lordy. But anyways, the one that caught me was because this is I was talking about from the staffing graph. They were mentioning the logos on the sweaters, and they asked the question that I did not even think about it until they asked the question: who is putting a Barstool logo on their sweater? And the two teams that they said, half jokingly, one I think is legit, one being Chicago. I think that was just a joke because of everything that's going on. But the other one, could you guess who, Peyton?
Oh, God. I was going to say Boston, but I don't think that's juicy enough.
No, they're going to go TD. I think they're going TD or Dunkin' Donuts.
Carolina? Oh, God.
Could you imagine? The bunch of jerks, Tony D'Angelo
NASCAR logo on
and
there, please.
Barstool. You want me to go full? If you want to be hated, if you want to go heel, you join the NWO. If you want to be hated, you put that logo on your sweater. You want to be a bunch of jerks. You want everyone to actually hate you, with the exception of the very small, mindless demographic. That's how you do it, kids. I'm terrified, Peyton. I know we talked about the whole thing with TNT and that possibly happening. Obviously, we've started to see the talent pool come out of it. I don't think they're going to force Wayne Gretzky to be affiliated with those people, which I'm glad that at least even in the South, Turner Sports kind of gets it. But it just the way we talked about how Barca would do stuff with TNT, how it would make sense, I can totally see this happening with the Hurricanes, and I'm terrified of it.
Well, I don't know if you're a praying man.
I'm
maybe just start saying some prayers, and maybe
gonna dust off my rosary here in a minute because. Listen, it's a money thing. I get it. That's why the league is doing this. They're bringing the logos in because, hey, it gets them money. And then for the players, I'm sure they're not going to care because, A, they don't see the logo on their sweaters. They see what's in front of them. And also the fact that they know that if revenue comes in for the league, that means the salary cap goes up, and that means their cap hits go up, and money keeps going up higher and higher. So that's why they're probably okay with this. But I think the league has to do some type of final approval with these and pray to God some research with some of these because just to make sure that, hey, these are companies you want to see because I want them to be smart. I want them to be good. And I don't want them to be a focus point, but that would be a focus point.
So are we thinking that there are going to be helmet ads and jersey ads? I assume that's going to be the case.
Yes, they did say the helmet ads were going to come back shortly after the season last year, and then they did say that they're going to have both. And listen, I've watched American Hockey League for my entire life. They've had sweater ads forever. I will say this.
Exactly, I was going to bring that up. It's if you watch AHL, you get used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it after a while. And I'll tell you, the best part about it is that's how you can tell whenever you see someone wear a jersey like in the stands, that's how you know what era it was. Like the Griffins had like Cintas for 5 years. They had back in the day, their first couple were Butterworth Hospital before that became Spectrum Health. Like you knew what time frame you were in when you looked at someone's sweater. So maybe that's how the league can do it. Hey, vintage jersey, for Boston. This is back when we had TD, and now we're Dunkin' Donuts, whatever. You can tell what year it was.
The best one is the Providence Bruins with Dunkin' Donuts. That's far and away the best jersey ad.
Oh my gosh, so they had a miserable because they play in Dunkin' Donuts Arena, and they paint around the P in Providence. At least for a couple years, they did like the Dunkin' Donuts. So this is black and yellow Providence, Bruins looking P, and then this mixture of brown and pink in the neutral zone. It just looked weird.
Them's the breaks, man. That's all I can say. Back to Carolina real quick. Okay, so here's our best hope. Their helmet ad was PNC.
Correct.
On all of their designs. So we just got to hope it's that. The problem, though, is that with them them having the helmet designs, they had to get rid of that sexy, sexy little candy red hurricane.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beauty.
So yeah, PNC. Pony up. Put your money where your mouth is.
Please.
Please, God.
For all of us that don't want to hate you.
Please.
Listen. There's going to be some interesting ones. But I think that because the trend was last season, and a lot of teams did this, is they pretty much just whatever their arena name was after, the company that owned the arena, that's what they put on the helmets. And I think that's how it's going to work. But the last thing we need, though, Peyton, like I said, is a Swedish hockey thing, or for us people that love the sport, a NASCAR thing where you have like 7 different logos on your car. We don't want that to happen. As long as it keeps it simple, I think I'll be okay with it. I'm not going to get mad, right?
Or Pornhub sponsoring.
Oh my gosh, they mentioned someone. Staff and Graph said that, and they were like, "Oh my gosh!" As long as I'm pretty sure they're not going to say no to the Brads logo, right? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a no. I think so. I would hope so. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And let's just hope teams make the right decisions on who they want. Being next to their logo, their team logo. They want to keep it good and clean for the kids, right? Because the last thing I need to see an 8-year-old wearing an Andrei Svechnikov jersey with the Barstool logo on it and have to tell that kid what Barstool Sports likes to talk about. Because that's the thing, everybody. Anyways, before I bash this microphone into this nicely painted wall here in my brand new studio, NHL 22 recently announced that Austin Matthews is going to be the cover athlete for the second time in 3 years. Peyton, this is Chicago Blackhawks level of shoving down the throat, right?
Pretty much, except I think, let's see, it was Kane in 10, Taves in 11, and then Taves and Kane.
Well, no.
16.
No,
well, it was.
Yeah. And then Taves had a...
Okay. There were some serious
Or Kane, excuse me.
allegations. I mean, looking back now, it's kind of a cancel culture thing, a little bit, but we didn't know at the time. So,
Well, the
but
problem was when those allegations came out, the game was about to get released.
right,
And had it happened like in April, and then they had been cleared by the time the game came out, I think they'd been okay with it. But the fact that it was like, all right, the game's coming out in 2 days. JT, it's just you. Taves, it's just you. And I can see what happened on that. I can see the reasoning behind it. But my thing is this: why 2 and 3 years? Like I get it. At least there was a few years for Chicago, and that point in NHL 16 when Taves was on the cover. That was at the peak of, and the end, obviously, of the Blackhawks dynasty. I can see why you'd want, 2 guys from the best, probably modern day dynasty in hockey. Tampa's obviously challenging that now. But Austin Matthews in 2020 deserved it. He was a very good hockey player, a very young hockey player. But now he wins the Rocket Richard, so you have to put it on him again. Why?
I'll tell you why. Because it's the same game.
Oh, don't you dare do this to me again.
2020. Same game. It may look a little bit better. The ice might be a little bit shinier. The colors are more saturated. But if you've seen the little snippets of gameplay footage, it's the same game. Nothing has changed.
Oh my gosh.
Why?
And I'm still going to pay the $60 for it. Or whatever my deal I get for PlayStation Plus. I'm still going to pay for it because I need to play new games and I need to play online when I get the chance and blah, blah, blah. Because I unfortunately buy into the machine, buy into the system. But you're telling me, and the worst part was, remember the day before Peyton, they tweeted out, hey, we're going to release the name tomorrow. And they showed a guy for the New York Rangers skating. And I said to myself, okay, Artemi Panarin, that's cool. I'm okay with that.
Perfect.
I am more okay with Artemi Panarin, who plays for the Rangers and who may not make the playoffs next year, Rangers. Oh, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. But I would rather be okay with him being on the cover than seeing a guy who, yes, was the Rocket Richard winner last year, do it again. Like, it's hard for me because, like, yes, I'm a Leafs fan. I love Austin Matthews. Love that he plays on my team. But I don't need to see him on the video game cover twice in, 3 years.
Did you not feel when you were watching those gameplay snippets and you saw how the colors have changed a little bit? Did it not make you feel like they kind of like went back to the PS2 era? It's almost what it looked like.
If they went back to NHL 04, I'm okay.
Someone said, why don't you just remaster NHL 14, which I could not agree more.
Oh my gosh. And there's so many little things about 14 that I love. First of all, I like the live the life mode. I like that, which is now obviously they kind of brought that back with the 2K setup that they brought now for Be a Pro back.
I hate the multiple choice part of it.
Well, that's the point. You want to be a jerk? You want to be a bunch of jerks, or you want to be a hero? What do you want to be?
That was like controlling the stock market. Like, okay, yeah, you do this certain thing, it goes up or it goes down.
Buy, mad money.
Nothing changes.
But
you see your face on a billboard once.
Oh gosh, you can either go out with your buddies or you can stay home with your wife. Or your girlfriend? Who do you want to choose? I'm gonna say I'm my girlfriend. You're a jerk. We all hate you, you turducken, for not going out with us and getting wasted right the night before a game.
The fans get mad too for whatever reason.
Gosh, I'm pretty sure. What if, because Radulov was in the league in 14, right? He was back in Russia, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I was about to say, I'm like, man, could you imagine playing on the team and live the life mode and having your buddy say, hey, let's go out tonight before a playoff game?
I can't remember if Sergei Kostitsyn was there or not. I don't think he was.
No, I think the Kostitsyn brothers were both out by then. I think Sergei's ended when he didn't decide to back check against the Oilers famously that one time. I still remember that. Oh yeah,
painful memories, man.
It's like a 2-on. I was like, I'm not back checking. All the benches like pointing at. I'm like, get on the ice. And gosh, how did Barry Trotz deal with you guys for that long? Good Lord.
It was a bright idea to bring in the other brother. That was a great trade.
It's gonna look great. Gonna look great on the paper, and hey, you can have 2 sweaters with Kostitsin on. It's gonna be great. They're gonna love each other. They're gonna get along and play together. And hey, you know what? Second round, pretty good, right?
Same deadline that they traded a first-round pick for Paul Gostad.
Oh,
Now, Paul Gostad was great. I love that guy. One of the best
first round
humans
pick
to put on that sweater, but for first.
Well,
what do we do with a drunken sailor?
What do we do with a drunken sailor? What do we do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? Hey, oh man, I love. Who's texting me at this time of the show? No, I did not like that signing. Oh, hey, Alex is listening to the show. Cool. Are you watching the show?
Signing?
Tony D'Angelo.
Okay.
He must be bored while he's working tonight. He must be tuning in. I've always thought about what it'd be like to try to get like an M or a MixLR thing on here so people could actually listen to us without having to keep their phone open. But unfortunately, that costs money, kids, and I don't have a whole lot.
For those of you that are pulling against Tony D'Angelo, as you should, just again, if you're the praying kind, you pray up for Ethan Bear. That he is just phenomenal. Because if I already got Pesci, there's another right-hand guy that I can't think of. But there's a chance that D'Angelo is just relegated to the 7th guy.
You know what? I think Ethan Bear, now that, because him and Darnell Nurse were a really good pair last year for Edmonton because they both complement each other. Ethan Bear was a real good, solid guy in his own zone. Nurse was at times, but Nurse was allowed to be more of an offensive threat. Hence why he's overpaid now, but that's neither here nor there. But I think Ethan Bear, if he gets put with the right guy, I think he's going to be a useful asset on the back end for Carolina. I think he's that kind of toughness that they like to have, and I think he can play offensively if he needs to, but that's obviously not a strong suit. And I think that's why they brought him in. It's like, hey, we need more of a defensive guy. Ethan Bear, that's you. We like you. And I think that's a good solid pickup. Just, wasn't. It could have ended there and have been okay, but they just had to keep going.
Why do they still have Jake Gardner?
Who are you going to trade him to?
Well, I guess that's the case. Oh God, $4.05 million through 2023. Yeah, way to go.
Boy, oh boy, I tell you, they're an interesting team. By the way, for those that I know I meant before Bruce LeVine jumped on with us, I was going to mention the Women's Worlds. U.S. beat Finland today 3-0. And right now, Canada's up on the Swiss 2-0 early in the second period. They are outshooting the Switzerland by 21-4 margin. This coming after they beat Germany 7-0, where they outshot, I think it was like 57-3. They outshot the Germans in the quarterfinals. Canada's good this year, Peyton. They want to win badly. And
they really made a mockery of the States the other day, too, with that 5-1 win.
Okay. For those, I remember it was because that was Saturday. I remember, no, it was Thursday. Friday? Thursday. No, it was Thursday.
Because
I was out with my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law because it was my nephew's first birthday. And I was looking at Kelly. I'm like, oh, gosh, Kelly. Like, what? I'm like, Canada's killing the United States. I'm like, is that a good thing? I'm like, well, yes, but for those that don't know how the Canadian-U.S. rivalry has worked in pool play during tournaments, 9 times out of 10, it's probably not that high of a margin, but recently, whoever wins the preliminary round game loses the game in the knockout stages. I look at 2010 very, very ominously. Canada lost to the U.S. in 2010 in Vancouver in the preliminary game. Marty Brodeur famously batting the puck out of the air like a Yahoo. That's how that went down. Canada ends up winning the gold medal in Sidney Crosby. Go to the World Juniors the month prior. Canada wins in a shootout in the preliminary round. They go to the gold medal game. Jordan Eberle drags the team back to go to overtime, and then John Carlson beats Martin Jones short-sided, making him look like a gosh darn junior B goaltender. And it also happened in the 2019 Worlds as well, or the 2018 Olympics, actually, excuse me. Canada beat the Americans in the preliminary round. They go to the gold medal game, and it ends in a stinking shootout with the Americans winning. So, to my point taken, Peyton, I am not happy that Canada beat the U.S. the other night. I say that in the nicest way possible because deja vu is going through my mind, and it's a very painful thing.
Too bad, so sad.
Oh shit! Oh, Peyton's like,
Tyler.
Poor me. Have you watched any of it all, or have you been pretty busy?
A little bit. I watched some of the Japan game, and it was really cool that Japan was able to put 2 in. So I think that was the first time that Japan had ever scored on America in the women's world, so that's kind of neat.
Oh yeah, listen, and I get it. People say, "Oh my gosh," you talk about them Canada beating them up 7-0 and US beating Japan 10-2. It's not those games that people should be watching. The game between Japan and Denmark that had a lot of shots was fun to watch. Hungary playing the Germans, that was a really close game. That was Hungary's first ever game in the top tier of the women's world, and they played really well. They have a couple players that had just been drafted in the NWHL draft. Like, it's fun hockey to watch. I love watching this stuff, and Kelly thinks to like, and for me, it's great because we had hockey, literally competitive hockey, the entire year, Peyton. Well, at least once the NHL started, their abbreviated season, they literally have gone because they went to June, late June, they went into July, and now we have hockey in August. We are going to have hockey for an entire calendar year, and I am happy.
Yes, August is the worst month for a hockey fan. So the fact that they're finally showcasing this tournament, something that people should be paying attention to in the month of August, and then you've got 15 days, and then you'll start having exhibition games again in the NHL. So it's not exactly Christmas time for hockey fans, but it's just good. You know, you're not having to worry about the lull. As Canada has made it 3-0. I believe that was Marie-Philippe Poulin.
Marie-Philippe. Oh, don't forget, Peyton. I'm 30 seconds behind you here. I'm using the interweb. But no, yeah, so yeah, probably just scored this power player. Melly Daou again. Holy moly, that's 200. Melly Daou got held pointless in the first game against Finland, but now if you count, I don't know if she had an assist on the first goal, but now she has. If it's her, that means she has 12 points in 5 games. She has been
hellacious bounce off a.
Oh man, yeah, that went off Daou. That was the Boston University over Miami in the national championship game. 0-9 goal went off the defenseman. Kobe Cohen got the game winner for the Terriers that game. But where were we? Women's Worlds. Because Dan Rice, when we had him on last week, he made a really good point, or a couple weeks ago, excuse me. We talked about it. He said, it's great that this tournament's in August because typically it happens in April or May, so during the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I wonder if the IHF sees this and says, let's put it in a non-typical NHL month because A, it gets a lot more views, and B, gives us a chance to really, for us that do like watching, it gives us a chance to enjoy it because we don't have to worry about, going back and forth panicking like, oh my gosh, we got Stanley Cup playoffs tonight, but the women's world's going over in Finland and you just end up staying for a 24-hour cycle and want to die. And that's why I say to myself, like, it'd be great if maybe they change that up. Because that's why I like the fact that the Worlds were, around the same time, but at least they weren't during they were during the Stanley Cup playoffs like they usually are, but at least it was kind of different. I felt like I was able to watch more of it than I usually do. And, maybe the IHF, as we've learned over the multitude of Olympic negotiations, are very stagnant and don't like to change stuff. This was literally because of the pandemic, so it probably won't happen. But I'd like to think it would change because, hey, gives us a chance to watch hockey in August, gives something to talk about.
And we'll see the TV numbers when they come out. I'm sure that's going to play a huge factor in whether or not they keep doing that.
Well, it's been interesting because they did the same thing for the men's worlds as well. They had split. The NHL network has taken Canada and the US, the big games, but they've also been broadcast on ESPN Plus as well. At least Hungary and Germany, the lesser games, if you want to say that. So it's given people from multiple ways to watch these games. And I know the ESPN Plus and NHL Network just take the TSN feed, even though I have no problem the way TSN covers Hockey Canada. They get their rocks off on it and they do a damn good job of it as well. I would like to see the numbers in the States because I would think that since it is in North America and the times are not miserable to watch, I think people actually are watching this. I would hope so. My Twitter feed says so, but then again, I follow a lot of people that like women's hockey, so maybe it's just kind of biased in that retrospect.
But I got nothing further. That's perfect.
Gosh, Peyton, you're supposed to have a comment for everything I say.
How about ESPN? You pony up and hire me for these things.
Hey, I tried reaching out to people. Oh, I don't want to mention this to you, Peyton, but I have to. Before they came onto the broadcast here, they were doing NHL Tonight, and they ran an ad or commercial for a certain new college hockey conference that they're going to be broadcasting this season. The CCHA. Talked to Dominic Hennig about it. Probably going to get Dom on the show here when we get closer to the hockey season. Former Fair State broadcaster, former Flint Firebirds broadcaster, Dominic Hennig. He was the one that broke the news to me. By the way, I reached out to a few other of the possible networks that were going to broadcast games for CCHA. A couple of them did not know that was going to happen from the people I talked to. So, but NHL Network is confirmed, and I've heard a couple others that I'm not going to mention simply because of the fact that I don't want to mention companies that said they don't know that they're going to broadcast them this year, because I think that would be in bad taste. But it's good to see, you know what, and I know obviously Peyton with staying with Alabama Huntsville and how that all went down with the CCHA. At least it's good to see though that there is a confirmed national network that's going to be broadcasting college hockey, because obviously like Bally Sports in North likes to do the Minnesota games, and BTN does a lot as well, and Nesson obviously in the Northeast. But it's good to see a national network that most people can get with a lot of sports packages. It's going to be broadcasting college hockey this season.
And a conference that rightly deserves it. When all these teams were in the WCHA, I felt like we were all kind of the best kept secret in hockey. So I'm glad. I've still got a soft spot for the CCHA. There's no hard feelings there. It is what it is. It's business, and it's good to see the teams that I was part of coverage for actually getting a national spotlight as they deserve. So it's great to see, and it needs to continue. College hockey's footprint, I think, needs to grow and expand, and I think getting more national coverage accomplishes that.
And that's why I'm bummed how Hockey East, I mean, most of the games actually you can find for free on like the net, because their Nesson Plus, shout out to BTN, is free to watch if you want to watch like UMass Lowell play Vermont. You don't have to pay to watch it. But I know like the big games like the Bean Pot's on Nesson, so I can't get it, and it kind of stinks. But it's good to see that college hockey is still relevant despite a few programs not being around anymore. By the way, have you heard anything on Anchorage? Is that
I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
It's been pretty quiet on their front for a little bit, which is kind of a bummer as well. But of course, we didn't mention it on the show, and for shame on us, but this happened a while ago. Robert Morris just getting the axe randomly. I thought Robert Morris was doing fine, and apparently I was wrong. They were a power in that. I don't say a power, but they were a very competitive team in that Atlantic Hockey Conference. And I thought, hey, they're going to challenge AIC. They're going to be good for years. And the next thing you know, we're going to have the two Justin McKalian joining Brandon McKalian over there at Fair State, because McKalian, one of them, had to go find a job after Robert Morris decided to up and call it a day. But Peyton, unfortunately, knows way too much about that, unfortunately. Hence why, folks, he's a free agent broadcaster, because some people think it's too expensive to run a college hockey team, even though people raised money for it.
Yeah, I know one of the people with deep pockets, so I've heard from the source that it could have kept going. Now, I did get an explanation on that, and I'm going to butcher the heck out of it, but he did say that going independent still would have been a very monumental, near impossible task, even if it was just for one season. And a lot of it had to revolve around travel budgets, and bringing in other teams too. So there's a lot more that goes into college hockey than meets the eye. But I hate it, and I'm trying not to dwell on it, because I'm a hopeful man and I like to keep my head up. But I'm afraid that this is it for UH hockey. I don't know if there is a comeback. And that's why I said when this all broke down that there needs to be another team in the South that steps up to the plate and gets the job done. And we've heard the rumors about Tennessee State, but I think it's going to have to take an Alabama, a Georgia, one of them to.
They're getting that rink in Athens, man. That rink's building up over there in Georgia. I'll be honest. The problem is this pandemic ruined a lot of momentum. Now, I mentioned it many times with women's hockey, but also hockey in the South as well. The SECHC club collegiately are at the moment right now, obviously, but it's always fun hockey to watch. The tournaments are always great. I know you love covering them. Penalty Box Radio loves doing them. They do a great job. But when Georgia made the announcement that they're going to build a rink, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's starting to happen. And then the pandemic hit and just went right there. Just stopped you right there.
And UAH was talking about building a new arena on campus. And, I mean, there were a lot of factors that went into that, but I'm sure the pandemic really was the main one.
Right. Oh, and let's be honest, the pandemic is the reason why Alaska Anchorage, Robert Morris, and UAH were cut. Now, yes, UAH was saved for 1 year and then told, oh, it can't happen again. I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the pandemic happens, and that's how all of those programs all of a sudden were going to be the short stick, because it is expensive to run a college hockey program, because it's not like many of the Division I colleges that play their conference games regionally, very regional. College hockey doesn't quite have that for a lot of their teams. Obviously, Robert Morris is in the Northeast, or closer to the Northeast, which is where Atlantic hockey is. But UAH, the Alaskan teams, Arizona State, but then again, Arizona State has a Pac-12 budget, but that's not here or there. It's tough for some of those programs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And, it's not just the Southeast. You do wonder about the Southwest.
Right.
There's a lot of players coming out of California. I'm sure we're going to start to see players coming out of Nevada. Our wonderful cover athlete comes from Arizona. So it's going to be interesting. College hockey, there's some guy, he probably doesn't matter. I think he was on the College Hockey News, something. It was a column, and he was saying, college hockey's fine where it is. It doesn't need to grow. We're fine. And
that sounds like an Adam Wood on take.
Maybe that was him. I don't know.
I'm about to say, that sounds like a Wood on take. I know you're the other guy you're talking about. There's another one there. He covers Quinnipiac. Gosh, almost had him on the show once. Unfortunately, something came up. I forget his name now. Mike McMahon. That's another one of their writers that they have over College Hockey News. But yeah, I think I would love it to grow. I think, as crazy as it may seem, I think USC would be the first team out of California, if you ask me. Yep. I think that market, just because hockey in Southern California is still a great thing. No matter what the NHL teams are doing, I think it's still growing down there. And SC has a really good roller hockey program. I don't know how they would be at the ice hockey level, but I think if there was going to be a program, they would be it to do so. I don't know if Cal State Fullerton's a thing anymore, because I know they were really good at baseball, but I don't know if they're going to be getting good at hockey. But I like college hockey to grow. I don't think it's going to be 140 teams like they have in football. I don't think that's going to be a thing by the slightest. But I want it to be, where you can because right now, for those that don't know, NCAA hockey's rankings are only to 20, because they feel like having over a third of the Division I programs be ranked is too much. I want it to be where there's 25 teams ranked. And I guess you need to have more programs for that to be the case. That maybe that's just my thought there, Peyton.
Yeah. It'd be great to get around the 70, 75 mark, and you'd have more representation around the country. And, it would increase the prospect pool too. So, which honestly, that could lead to more NHL expansion if that's successful.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, I'll tell you this. Maybe
you grow the game. It all comes down to you're growing the game.
Exactly. And that's why the NHL should go to the Olympics. That's how you segue, kids. Not really much of a segue. It just kind of came in my head. But no, if there's any team that's actually really going to do it, mainly because if you ever seen their sweaters, their club college sweaters, they are sick. Oregon. University of Oregon. Give me that duck on that sweater, dude. I'm all for it. And then you just got to convince Michigan to pull out the frowning Wolverine. And that is going to be a game where people are going to buy sweaters up the wazoo, because it's going to be an angry duck versus an angry little cub Wolverine. It's going to be awesome. It's going to make millions of dollars for both the schools, and we're all going to pay $95 to $125 for them, even for the cheap Fanatics replicas.
It'd be amazing. You think about all the Southeast, all the Southeast teams and all the color ranges there. Once you get past all the maroon and red and white teams, you got your Auburns, your Tennessees, your Floridas. Florida would look amazing if you look at their current sweater.
Yeah,
it's black. It's got blue, orange, and white stripes, and in the middle is blue with gator teeth across the center.
For a fact that if Alabama got a team, they would do like the numbers on the side of their helmet, just like they do with the football team, because that's just how you think
or
that
they could do the Bear Bryant pattern if that would be allowed.
Maybe. They're not putting an elephant on their helmet. That's all, or on their sweater. That's just not going to happen, kids. It's going to be very simple. Well, I'm trying to think. Can we just say, though, I know this is me being like a blind, dumb kid. And we only got a few minutes left here on the show tonight before talking minors with the rando. By the way, talking about Southeast Athletics, minor, talking minors with the rando. He's based down there. I would love to see, like, I'm trying to figure out how the University of Auburn is not Auburn. Is that just a completely dumb thing to say? Like the color, like an Auburn color?
Oh, I was trying to figure out where you're going with that.
Like, how are they not Auburn? No, they're blue and orange.
How is their mascot and logo a tiger, but their phrase is War Eagle?
Ha! No, I got it. War Eagle. Ha!
Like, I don't know what that's all about.
Well, there's got to be a legend behind it, because like some people that still are very new hockey fans. How is the Red Wings logo an octopus? I'm gonna learn you something, kids. I remember I actually I had to impromptu kind of sort of jump on I was listening to like a live Slapshot Sweethearts podcast, for those that don't know, on Belly Up Sports. They were doing a live stream during the playoffs, and they came up somehow like, how did the Wings become an octopus? And they were they've talked about it before, but they were kind of someone through. So I literally wrote out the whole thing, and they posted it up on the board, like the whole story of the Cruzmano brothers, and how back in the day it's 8 wins to win a Stanley Cup, and they'd won 8 straight, but blah 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 blah. Kids, you have Google, use it. It's not that hard.
It's a very obsolete tradition.
It is, but then again, you know those Italians, they drink a little too much red wine, and stuff goes sideways, and octopi get thrown on the ice, and it's been sitting around now for, holy moly, 70. It's been almost 70 years, because it happened in 1952. So, kids, yes, it has been 69 years since the Red Wings first had an octopi thrown on the ice. Had to give that one out there for you. I'm surprised that the Red Wings did not do a tribute post for that. It has been 69 years since the Cruzmano brothers threw an octopi on the ice in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals, because that would have gotten a lot of likes and retweets. For all of you,
maybe get Carolina's Twitter person.
Oh gosh,
there,
you had to bring that back up. Thought we were past this, Peyton. I was trying to be nice and funny, but no, you had to go bring back the Hurricanes, bring back those bunch of jerks.
Yeah, because I totally endorse that. Like, I really want to stand behind that statement.
Oh boy. It's going to be interesting. Sweater numbers and all this nonsense. We have been chatting up with Peyton Turnage here on this another lovely Monday edition of the Kuehl Show. 3 guests tonight. Do not expect 4 next week, guys. I'm sorry. It's not gonna, like I said, it's not going to be linear. There's no way. Next Monday's Labor Day. We're not getting 4 people on the show. There's not 4 people in the world that want to jump on. Maybe 1, maybe 2. It may just be me rambling for an hour, and that'll be it. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Peyton, thanks for coming on again, pal. It's always good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Guys, I know I like to play it off. You think we have more than one person here. I mean, I guess you can say Wixie's supporting us from the kennel. I guess maybe that's 2.
The ghost of Alex.
There you go. He was watching. I know he was watching. That's why he comments on Tony D'Angelo thing.
He was watching from above.
He was. Oh. What? What do you mean? What do you mean above? I don't know anything about above. I hope he's okay.
No longer with us, folks.
Oh man. Anyways, make sure you guys follow Peyton Turnage at Peyton_Turnage or El Patron on Instagram. It's a funny name.
And TikTok now.
Oh gosh, TikTok. That's it. That's how we end the show on this bombshell. I'm Todd Kuehl.
TikTok.
See you, everybody. You guys have a good night. Thanks for watching the Kuehl Show here on 12 Ounce Sports.